Now, hold on. Hey, all right, good. All right, well, thanks for being here, everybody. Let's see, it's 8 o'clock Eastern time. Let's just make sure it's working on. All right, good. Okay, good. Just make sure we're on Rumble. Jaron, are you on? You're on Rumble too. Do you ever live stream on Rumble?
I've never live streamed there.
How about you're on Odyssey?
Are you live streaming at YouTube?
I am. Yes, sir.
If you give me the link, I'll post it on my Telegram group. You'll get a bunch more viewers.
Give you the link of my YouTube one. All right.
If you put it here in the private chat, that's probably best.
No, I will do that right now. So when you live stream, you're just on Rockfin. I tried to open up a Rockfin account. I did the whole thing, and they never got back to me.
Oh, you need to be referred.
I said you. I said Jaron. You know, they said
no, but it means I need to tell them.
Oh, okay.
So now that I know that you've done that, I'll reach out.
Say again?
So now that you've said that you've done that, I'll reach out to them.
Okay, cool. Marty, if it's okay with Martin from Rockfin. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
So how do I get this link to you? Do I put in the
private chat there on the right-hand side should work?
Well, I'm on StreamYard. Well, I'm just going to email it to you. That's
no, right. I mean on StreamYard. Do you see on the right-hand side? There's a button that says private chat.
Invite. I see in settings.
No, all the way on the right-hand side.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Oh, I know.
I'll put here.
A private chat right there. Cool. I got it right on, man. Sweet. All right, you're the StreamYard master. There you go. Cool. Okay. What the hell's the difference between StreamYard and there's another one, not the StreamYard? I can't remember. There's another one, man. It's
OBS?
Nah, it's not that. No. It's like Stream. It's not. I forgot what it's called. All right.
Cool. Oh, Streamlabs, probably.
Streamlabs. Yeah. Is that the same? What's the difference between that and Stream?
There's quite a big difference. StreamYard's easier and has less features, and then Stream. Now I forgot the name of it. StreamYard and what's the other one?
Streamlabs. I think
Streamlabs. Yeah, Streamlabs is a lot more involved. They do all the alerts and you can have coin jar and tips and your own page. You got a whole bunch of stuff.
Really? Oh, so StreamYard sounds better than
Streamlabs. It's a little bit more difficult to use. StreamYard's very, very easy. It's this is probably where you'd send somebody for their first time or start streaming, and then after that they can graduate to the other stuff.
Well, tell Martin from Rockfin, and he said, "Hey, man." I just said. I mean, you don't know who I am. I said who told you about Rockfin? I said Jaron. All right, so my friends, we got Jaron Campanella with us here. We are on, of course, freaking Rumble. Hey, we're actually on Rumble. What do you know? It works. I can't. Rumble sometimes works, Jaron, and sometimes it doesn't. But it looks like we're working now. Let me just get my Odyssey channel here. Make sure that's working too. All right, and that way, if any comments coming through there. And I appreciate you doing this last moment, Jaron. This is good stuff. Are you a 49ers fan or what?
I guess if I had to pick one team, I would pick the 49ers from football. I'm not a big football fan, but.
Well, you're mainly a San Francisco Giants fan, I see.
I'm a Giants fan, yeah, but not as much as I used to be. But, when you wake up to all this stuff, you kind of see that it's just bread and circuses, right?
Oh, man, 100%, dude.
Yeah.
So, the funny thing is I still enjoy it, not going to lie to you. I could care less, frankly, but I have 4 kids. My youngest kid is freaking knee deep in the NBA and NFL. And because he's into it, I'm into it. You know what I'm saying? I really don't care.
Right.
When you start taking a shine into this stuff, I say, yeah, man, I'll watch it with you. And if I've enjoyed hanging out with him, watching football and basketball more than anything. We actually went to go see, we drove up to Charlotte, North Carolina, saw the Hornets play the Nets, one of Kyrie Irving's last games on the Nets. And so we were cheering for old Kyrie pretty good. So that was a lot of fun, man. All right, so we got a couple people on the Rumble. All right, fantastic. All right, good. Looks like we're good to go, Jaron.
I just posted mine, so it's posted.
Sweet, man. Appreciate that, brother. And my man Josh Weiner, or is that Wellner? Josh is a Wellner. You say he's a lobsterman up in my stomping grounds of the state of Maine. So good. All right, my man John's in here. All right, good. Hey, we got all right. So Jaron, so you are in the Bay Area, is that right?
Yes. Well, no, I mean, I grew up there, but now I'm over in the valley. So over near the foothills, about 2 hours north of Fresno.
Okay.
An hour north of Fresno.
All right. So you're a native Californian.
Yep. Born and raised.
Gotcha. You got out of high school and you went to college, went right to work. Tell us, how did you?
I got out of high school. I did a little bit of college, but very, very little. And then I, started having some fun and ended up getting a girl pregnant, and then became a single dad by the time I was 20.
Really?
So yeah, she basically gave the child to me because she was into drugs and everything else. So yes, from the time that he was a little more than 1 and 3 months, I was a single dad. So that kind of, thank God, looking back, it straightened me out. It made me get away from worrying about girls and, kind of, I knew I needed to make money. So I basically got a job at Long's Drugs. My dad knew the store manager and started me there. If anybody's from California, you'll remember Long's Drugs is a great little outfit there. And so I worked there, and I real quickly realized how great of a place it was to work. The store manager was awesome, and he worked like 11 to 3. Sometimes he'd like work like no hours. He'd come in at 8 and like leave at 11 to go golfing. And I would even ask him, like, you don't have to have a certain time you have to work, or you don't have certain hours. He's like, no, they just require us to get the job done, and they pay you, well, if you make money, and they fire you if you don't.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. And he's like, they're always looking for people if you want to move up the ladder. So then they gave me keys to the store and, put me as a full-time, what they called department manager at the time. And then just moved up to an assistant manager and then became a store manager, youngest store manager with Long's at 24. So that was awesome. You get your own store. They put me in Salinas in like a really high theft store that wasn't making money. And they basically said, we don't know what's going on here. They're losing money. We're putting you in here. Your job is to figure out why and turn it back to profitable. So it's like, oh, great. So yeah, within the first couple of weeks, I was watching replays of the tapes the night before, and I found one of our managers was, basically taking people through the checkout line, friends of his, and just letting cart full of merchandise go for nothing. So, we got rid of him, and then that kind of put me as a big name with the company. They liked me for that, and then I got moved.
Confronted the guy. Was that nerve wracking? I mean,
no, because that's loss prevention, right? So they actually have somebody who's like, former cop, big guy. He comes in and fires them. So no, it wasn't worrisome or anything like that. And then I turned that store around, and then they gave me a promotion to the store in Monterey, on Fremont Street. So I was there for 6 or 7 years. And then while I was there, one day we're just on the floor and somebody calls and says, oh, there's an emergency meeting for the store managers. Like, okay, what's this about? So I go upstairs and they're like, oh, guys, just to let you know, we just were sold this, to CVS. And I was like, what? So it wasn't even any talk of that or anything. But of course, these corporations can offer these mom and pop drugstores huge amounts of money. Almost like, I forgot what it was. It's like quite a bit more than the stock price, right? Say the stock price is 22, they offered 34 or something like that. So the Longs brothers took it. And of course, CVS comes in and says, oh, we're not going to make any changes. It's just going to be, everything like it's always been. And you're like, okay, that's good. And then right away, the changes started coming. And I knew I didn't want to be there as soon as they told me, hey, we need you to get rid of this employee and this employee. I'm like, what do you mean? Why? And they said, because they make too much money. I'm like, yeah, they've been here 15 years. It's my head cashier. She's here every day, never sick. Why would I get, like, no, if anybody makes over $15, they either need to be a manager or trying to become a manager, or you got to let them go. So I was just pissed at that. And then I got moved after that to the 24-hour store in Salinas. It was the only 24-hour pharmacy in town. And they told me I could only hire.
Salinas is a bad part of town, right?
Bad town, yeah.
So you're there 24 hours.
Yeah, and that store actually was the number one store in the district. So it was actually, quite a bit, because you get bonuses based on how well you do versus metrics and things. Right. So it was actually quite a promotion. But I went there, and then they told me you can only hire people for the overnight crew at $8 an hour and 24 hours a week. I'm like, what? We're going to get just gang members. What are you talking about? He said, if you do that, they're just going to steal from you. Let me hire people that make this their job, right, so I can give them $15, $20 an hour and then have them work 40 hours a week. They're like, nope, we don't allow it. So sure enough, I do what they say. And then they came in to write me up eventually for having high shrink, which is theft, which is like, I told you that. And I told you this was going to happen. Like, you can't really stop that. And so they kind of got tired of me basically questioning them. One of the things I did, but I mean, imagine this. When I was at the Fremont Street in Monterey, they send an end cap of snow stuff.
Yes, right.
Snow shovels and salts and all this. And you're supposed to build this mandatory end cap at the front of the store. I'm like, we're in Monterey. The fuck, we're not doing that. So I'm like, I'm not putting this up. Well, sure enough, they come in and the district manager's like, where's the snow end cap?
Like, so just so I'm not familiar with California, just Monterey is the rich people stuff. That doesn't snow in Monterey, I presume, right?
It does not snow in Monterey, right? Monterey's right next to the beach there near Carmel.
And they made you put up shovels and salt and all that because
they treat every store the same. Every store, and I get why, because they probably have some sort of signed deal with whoever it is, and it's required that they put it in every store. I get it, but it's still stupid, right? So I badmouthed about that, and then they basically gave me a written warning, and then I got married in November of 2011, and shortly thereafter they came into the store and gave me a final warning because they said I had too much merchandise in the back room. My inventory was too high, which is ridiculous because I said, guys, it's November, whatever it was, 20th. And I said, Christmas is in a month. Of course, I have a lot of merchandise in the back room right now. So I just got fed up with it. I told my wife, I said, they're going to fire me. I said, I know. Oh, and by the way, they had me training some guy. So, hey, Jeremy, I need you to train this new store manager. He just basically shadows you. So I'm like, okay. So I asked him when he was there, I was like, what do you get? What did they hire you at? It's like 45. I'm like, oh my goodness. Cause I was making 90,000. So I'm like, okay, now I'm basically training my replacement, you know? So I'm like, I can see the writing on the wall. Now I did do something stupid because then I was talking to my wife and what can we do? And I don't know. I don't want to be there. And she's like, why don't you just quit? And I'm like, because what am I going to do? Where am I going to work? And she's like, well, she had like a huge book collection. I had a huge book collection. She goes, why don't we try and open that bookstore online? I'm like, you know what? I might do it. You know, I'm thinking about doing it. And then I said, yeah, I'll just quit. So I put in my 2 weeks notice, left on good terms. Well, then I went and tried to get unemployment and they're like, you don't get unemployment for quitting.
Exactly. Oh, man.
I'm like, oh man. So they're like, you had a choice. I said, but if they would have fired me, I would have lost my job history. And they're like, yes, but then you could have got unemployment. Now it turns out I would have never needed my employment history because I've never tried to work again. So
I mean, this story, you hear this 1,000 times a Sunday, these corporations, you know, the mom and pop get bought out. And you can't blame the mom and pops, man. Now, if it's second generation is one thing, but then they get bought out by these corporate freaking Mitt Romneys of the world and stuff, and they just go in there and they hire some kid. I used a long time. How old are you, Jaron?
43.
All right, so I'm 52. When I was in high school, I'm from the East Coast, a People's Drugstore. I don't know if they have that in California, but People's.
No, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so same thing, man. I had a girlfriend actually, and ironically, we thought she might be pregnant, and she wasn't. And if I almost guarantee you, I would have been the same. Literally, almost guarantee it would have been the same thing. I remember that was freaking scary. But I used to, you know, she'd come in. I say, hey, just take whatever the hell you want. I didn't know. I mean, I had no moral capacity. Right. You know, just take. We had, you know, I always like boxing. We had KO magazines on there and stuff, and the school supplies you want. She goes, okay. Anyway, so I'm sure that's what those gangbangers would have done there too. But it's crazy. So then People's got bought out by CVS as well. It's got this big conglomerate.
Oh, they've got like 9,000 stores or something, and they did so many wicked things. I mean, I just hated being there. You know, there's a PSE is a pseudoephedrine that's in certain cold medicines that they require you to keep behind the pharmacy because they're used to make methamphetamines, right? So there's a law in California that says you have to check somebody's ID, swipe it. Well, when they rolled this program out, the IDs weren't swiping. So we would swipe the ID and it would just decline it. And so they said, just go ahead and do it. And we're like, okay, but the law says you have to, no, just you sell it, make sure they come back. So we were just selling pseudoephedrine. Well, eventually they got sued for like $90 million, CVS did. And CVS just paid it and then went about their business. And it's like, they have this account for when people sue that they just shovel money out. They don't even care. And they probably made more than that in the fact that they were just selling multiple packages to people, because somebody could then go to every store and pick up 5 boxes, because we weren't tracking it. There was no ID. So it's good that they got sued, but they were just terrible for customers. We had these signs that were on the shelf that said buy one, get one, 50% off.
Oh, yeah.
Buy one, get one is in the tiniest print you've ever seen. So it's buy one, get one, and then 50% off and a huge tag. So, I mean, all day I'd be called up to the registers, and every single time I'd know exactly what it was, that a customer would be like, this is supposed to be half off. It says half off on the shelf. And so I would just end up giving it to them half off. And then, you know, I got in trouble for that. They're like, the sign, you know, you have too many overrides in your store. I'm like, yeah, it's because your signs suck. And they're like, oh, we've done testing with, and it sells better with that sign like that. I'm like, yeah, because they think it's 50% off. So
it says free on there. I guarantee it's gonna sound great if it says.
And you know what? There was some that would say buy one, get one free, and people would show up. I mean, it was like a Twilight Zone, really. And so I was happy that when I finally got to leave, it was sucked to leave the people there that I'd worked with a long time, and I felt like I was a good manager because I would understand the importance of keeping people happy.
Yeah, 100%.
If they're happy, they work for you. Great. So then I'm home with nothing to do. My wife and I.
Just real quick, when you're back at the pharmacy, did you ever get any freaking zombies coming in there? You know, needed.
Oh yeah, I mean
was that scary or what? You know what I'm saying?
There was tons of scary moments. I mean, one time I got laid on my ass because there's this kid that came in and they were stealing a bunch of liquor, and somebody told me that they're over there stealing liquor, and they were putting vodka bottles in their jacket. So the guy starts running out the door, and I'm chasing behind him, and he goes out the door, turns to the left, and then I go out the door, and from behind a pillar came some other guy and just clobbered me. Didn't have any idea he was even there. I was going after the guy running away with the merchandise, and he clobbers me. I go. So then they come in, they tell you that too when that happens, that you're going to get fired. If you ever have anything happen to you, they fire you. So like if I would have broke my arm there, they would have fired me. Luckily, nothing. I didn't hurt anything. But there's scary moments like that. Or never was robbed, but we did have somebody try and rob the pharmacy. But they're like people that have problems, right? They're trying to get like oxycodone or whatever.
Real quick.
Yeah.
I want not to skip too far, but you said in a video that you went back and like you saw the same person like from that you were working there. What you said when you went back?
I just did that recently.
Yeah.
So when I got pissed off and I left because I hated CVS, I kind of vowed never to go into one.
Right.
I'll never go into a CVS ever again. So this last Christmas, we were at my wife's brother's house, and he lives in Monterey. And I just drove by the store. I'm like, you know what? I said, I don't think anybody would be there that I know, and I kind of want to see the store and so I went in there and sure enough, as soon as I walked in, I walked around the corner and there's a girl right there, an old lady, and I'm like, I hired that girl. So I'm like, I wonder if she'll even remember me. So I went up to her and I was like, excuse me, do you remember who hired you? She's like, here? I'm like, yeah. She goes, yeah. I'm like, who was he? She goes, you. I'm like, yeah. So I get, and that had been so what did we in 2023 or that was 2022? I guess I would have last stepped in that store probably around 2009.
Oh man.
So quite a long time. And then and she kind of started naming some other people that were still there. There's only like 3 of them.
Did you say you left money on the table or something like that when you left because you quit? I can't remember now. I'm just thinking like.
Well, I was making a ton. I mean, I was making like 90,000.
401k or no, that's what. All right, so that let me get back to that. So you left CVS. You're like, dude, what the hell? You started now. You burn it through your 401k or something like that. Is that what it was?
Correct. Yeah, we lived off of the my 401k I cashed out, which you have to take an early withdrawal penalty. But it was like, I was done with that and what we needed, and thought that we'd be able to get this bookstore up and running. And
you're still raising your son at this point.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And how old?
By this time though, in 2009, I met my wife, and she moved in 2010, so he was 10 at that time.
Okay.
And then so then 2011 we bought a house in Salinas over by so this is how bad it was. I bought a house, all my savings into the house, had this great job, didn't think it would be a problem, and then the stuff started going wrong, and then it was like, oh shit, now we're going to leave. Yep. So I had this house payment, which was only $1,700. It wasn't that bad, which I lost that house. But then that was basically it. We set up a store online, with a Shopify, a bookstore, and we spent a whole bunch of time inventorying. It was all perfect. And then we're like ready to go. We opened the store, and then we realized that we're not Jeff Bezos, number one. But number two, that we didn't have any customers. So we're like, so one thing about an online store that you don't think about is like, wait a second, where do people come from? Like, oh shit. And we have this perfect store. It's up, it's running great. All the books are inventoried. And our goal was we called ourselves the Golden Rule Sellers. We were always online. My wife was always available for chat. So if we said like, if you want to see a certain page of a certain book, or you want to see the condition of it, we'll show it to you in a video. And, but we didn't have that many customers. We got lucky that there's this, and I still think the app is available. It's called Wanelo, WANELO. What they do is they take a bunch of items from different stores and make a large store, right? So if you go to Wanelo, you're basically shopping through all these items, but it's many people's different stores. Okay. So like once a day, we would get 3-4 orders from, or not once a day, we'd get like 3-4 orders a day from Wanelo, but it was the only place that was, our store wasn't selling anything. It would always be at Wanelo, but we'd still have to ship it to the customers, and we'd make, 30, 40, $50 a day. And it wasn't enough. So then, I started getting into Bitcoin.
Inventory was books you had collected, you and your wife, over the.
Well, her aunt passed away and left her a huge book collection, and then I had a lot of books. My mom was into books, and so we just had a lot of books. And we kind of wanted. If you look up online, you can find these used books that are like $50, and we're like, why not sell them for 20? Like we don't, we kind of were in this mood of like, let's sell them for cheaper. Let's be cheaper than everybody else. So, but again, we didn't have a lot of customers, so it was basically a lot of time at the computer by myself. It was the very first time I was able to start looking into things. My buddy had told me in 2004 or 5 that 9/11 was an inside job.
Yeah.
And I told him, "You're insane. What are you talking about? Don't talk to me about that." I was like, "What do you mean? Like our own government, the American government's going to drop their buildings, and you're an idiot." So, but it was then many years later. So I mean, it wasn't until I was a late bloomer as far as that goes that I was sitting at home and started to look into it, and sure enough, come to that conclusion. And then the other thing that was I got into Bitcoin because then I started writing for 2 Bitcoin websites and getting paid in Bitcoin. So that kept us afloat for a while.
So you're
And
still doing the bookstore at this point.
yes, well,
Right.
yeah, my wife was basically in charge of it because
All right.
Wanella would be the orders, she'd package them and ship them, and I didn't have to do much.
So you weren't doing any like regular work. You know what I'm saying? You're like,
Not
hey,
really.
I'm doing the website. Your wife's doing the website. You're still raising a 10-year-old kid. You know the money's not coming in fast and furious. You know what I'm saying? So you're scared crapless. So I mean, you're not. When I
Well,
say
we were
scared,
okay at the time because we still had a lot of the money from the 401k.
okay,
So it wasn't like, we knew it was going to take some time to get the store going.
right,
It
right.
just never really got going. But it was still making, like I said, $50 a day. So, that was what, $1,500 a month, but we needed more. So I started to write for Bitcoin websites, 2 of them. One was called bitscan.com and the other one was called cryptocoinsnews.com. So, and at the time, and this is so sad to think about, but they were paying me 0.3 Bitcoin per article. So at the time that was about $75.
Okay.
And now it's like 7,000 or something. So that's sad to think about, right? I was getting paid $7,000 an article, but I just kept accumulating Bitcoin, and we at one time had like 50 Bitcoin in a paper wallet. And
You had 50 Bitcoin.
yeah, I was making 0.3 an article, and I was writing 2 articles for each website a week. So
Right.
they were adding up, and every time we needed to cash it out to live, we would just cash it out here and there. And the price kept going up, right? It was like 400 when it started, then it was like 800,
Yeah.
then it was 1,000. So at that time, my wife and I are just laughing, like, because then, rather than getting 75 an article, it was like getting 225 an article.
Yeah, right.
So we were just laughing about how great it was. But we sold the final Bitcoin in 2017 for like, I don't know, 14 or 1,500. And I kind of thought, and the reason I wasn't upset about it is I thought Bitcoin was going to be, I was the head safety and security writer, and I saw people losing money constantly, either through they lost their password, they didn't know what they're doing, they sent it to some scam artist, and I was like, you know what, I don't think people are ready for it, and so I didn't think it would be something in the future. Now, what I didn't realize is innovation exists in crypto, like because it's open source, so people can take somebody else's code, change it. So now the wallets that people have are so much better. They actually prevent you from doing the things that people were causing people to lose money before. So it got better. If I would have known that, if I would even had a glimpse of like, there's a wallet called Exodus now, really nice wallet, pretty, carries like 120 coins in it. If I would have had just a vision of that, I would have never got rid of the Bitcoin. But
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
What are you
Can't
gonna
cry
do?
over and like people say, they're like, oh, you could have been a multimillionaire. It's like, no, if I didn't sell it when it was $1,000, I would have sold it when it was 2. If I didn't sell it when it was 2, I would have sold it when it was 3. There's no way I would have waited until it was $70,000 and been like, okay, now I'm ready to sell my 50 Bitcoin.
I hate that crap, Jaron. I literally that stuff drives up the wall. It's like, okay, I coulda, woulda, shoulda. We all should have bought Amazon in
right.
1998. Give me a
hindsight's 2020. That's why those people are rich, is because they took the gamble. Right?
Yeah, they literally took the gamble and they put everything in it, and they stay true. The funny thing is, we call it in economics, we call it survivor bias. We only focus on the people who survived to be the Jeff Bezos, regardless of how that, what kind of freaking, psyop and all that is put up. But we don't talk about the million other people, your bookstore, that did not survive to be, I hate that, because it's always focused on, you should have been like that guy. Well, how about the 99 other guys who didn't?
And we tried to get advertising too, like those people just rob you. Like we would sign up for some SEO site that's like, oh, we'll get you #1 Google results, or just no difference. And so it was
just pretty good at this stuff now, though. You're pretty good at SEO. I mean, you do all this stuff. I mean,
no, I mean, I don't do any
SEO, but just technology. I mean,
I guess my wife still likes to point out that I didn't know how to copy and paste when I was first doing the bookstore. What do you mean, Control C? I'm like, wow, this is cool. But I'm a quick learner. So,
well, you're the one who got me into Telegram, dude. I was like, because I heard like Curtis Stone, the urban farmer, he's all talking about Telegram, and Jack Spurko, and I was like, I tried. I said, man, this sucks, dude. I can't figure this out to save my life. And then you had the video on Telegram. I got a bug. I got a kill right there, and I don't like to kill bugs, but that doesn't look like a good one. Anyway, so it's like
pretty great, huh? I mean, the only problem with it is I feel like it's got to be a honey pot because everything's free. It's like when is who gives things away for free? Like it's literally unlimited storage.
It's what all the stuff you got on there, man. It's freaking nuts. I'm like, it's all free.
And I put my ebook collection on there, which is like 2,700 ebooks.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. And it's
all the videos and everything. It's like, what? It's, I mean, literally, you can sit. Every morning I wake up, there's a guy on your thing called KP. I guess he's the only guy who's talking that early in the morning. But it's like, dude, I'm watching. It's nuts.
Yeah.
All right. So now you're sweating a little bit. The Bitcoin is running out. You got a kid. Your wife is, obviously you need a place to live and everything.
Well, we had our house.
You're raised Catholic. You're even an altar boy. You went to a Jesuit school. Well, tell us about that.
Yep, Jesuit high school. I went there to play sports, and then I was slow, so I didn't really get very far in baseball. And then basketball was a funny story that, my freshman year, I went out for basketball and clearly was better than these other guys. And my dad even came to the final tryout, and they had like a scrimmage game, and I scored like 12 and had a couple blocks. And my dad's like, "Oh, you're in. It's no problem." Right. Yeah, thank God. So then the next day comes and we see the lineups, and sure enough, I go to the chart and I'm not on there. So was pretty upset. Well, my dad found out. My dad started snooping around and found out that the guy who made the team for a center instead of me, his dad donates the shoes and the jerseys for the team. So the most proud I ever was of my dad is he came in one time. He's like, "We're going to the principal," and we went into this office, and I sat down at the chair. My dad goes in the principal's office, and I just heard him chewing this guy out. And it was like the best. But from that moment on, I hated that school. I hated everything about. I hated school, period. And I always tell the story that it's very strange that they would have science class, you'd have evolution or biology or whatever, and then right after that, you have religious studies. Yeah. And I was very jaded because I was raised Catholic. And I was like, wait a second, why are they teaching us evolution if that's we don't believe that? So I just kind of became disillusioned with school. But finished it off, did what I had to do. But it was like $5,000 a year. Now it's like $25,000 a year. But at the time it was $5,000. My parents had to struggle to put me there. And they had high aspirations for me to go to college. And then, I graduated and went to junior college for a couple of weeks. And I was like, nope, it's just not for me. I cared more about women and drugs. And so that's what I did. And then, so as far as my wife and I, she grew up Bible believing Christian. And I grew up Catholic. We didn't have any problems when we were dating. We got married, and then we started talking about having a kid, and we kind of talked about how we would raise them. And then we kind of realized there was a little bit of a divide there in the fact that she's like, well, the Bible's true. It's written by God. I'm like, no. Like the Bible's written by man. And, there's some good parts in it and some stuff's inspired, but not all of it. So we had this kind of disconnect there. And we actually, this is probably 2000, like 13, 14 in there. And I remember laying in bed, praying to God. We held hands and, God, please give us 1 year to find you. Yeah. Give us 1 year to search outside the Bible. You say, leave no stone unturned. You say, challenge all things or I forgot the exact verse, but, we said, okay, just give us 1 year to find you. So we then start looking into religion, and she had a lot of time during the day too. So she was researching stuff, and we found this one guy who said to read the Bible as if it wasn't God's word, right? So he said, because the problem is just like with all indoctrination, if somebody hands you a book and says, this is God's word, and you start reading it, you're going to read it differently than you would have if you found it on a shelf and just started reading it and didn't know it was God's word, right? Because you're going to give it more reverence. You're going to allow certain things you may not otherwise allow. So when we started reading it like that, we got through half the Old Testament or something, and we just said, no, this isn't God. It's just not who God is. There's too many verses in the Old Testament that made us kind of doubt that could be God. So we basically became atheists. Mm-hmm. And for about 6 months in 2014, we were atheists. And I wanted to debate Christians. I was all about it. I'm going to debate Christians. So I'm researching and learning about evolution and stuff. And then I realized, wait, this is just another religion. Because I was like trying to find the facts. And then I realized, wait a second, you're not allowed to even question evolution. There's nobody questioning it because it's accepted as, so I'm like, where's the facts? Where's the evidence? So same thing with like dating. I wanted to find out about how they know the age of the earth and how they know the age of dinosaurs. And I just realized this is all just a belief. It's just men who hate God. And so I kind of, my wife and I were talking, and I said, I think that the answer is in the middle. I said, we can't, just because somebody wrote a Bible about God that we don't agree with doesn't mean God's not real.
Right.
And just because, these guys, so we kind of ended up settling in the middle, and we just said, let's get rid of all of our beliefs, because we kind of were realizing that at this point we were lied to about everything. I remember looking at a map, and, one of the maps that you have at school, kind of like one of those pull down maps. And I remember seeing the equator at like 3/4 of the way down.
Mm.
And I'm like, wait a second. So I never had seen that before. Like, I'm like, why is the top half of the map, the top half is like 3/4 of the map? So I remember looking into it, and they're like, oh, because the white countries are right. So America's bigger than it's supposed to be. Russia's bigger.
Greenland is bigger than Africa.
Right. Europe is bigger than it's supposed to be.
Come on,
and then
man.
everything in the South is smaller, right? Africa's smaller. So when I saw that, I'm like, just pissed, right? So I'm like,
that's exactly, you get pissed.
You get pissed.
Like, literally pissed. You're like, wait a second, Greenland is not bigger than Africa,
right?
Like, oh my,
I was so livid. I just said, that's it. Let's erase it all, and let's just build our beliefs up from the ground up. Meaning, don't accept anything as being true until we can verify it and we actually come to that agreement. So the very first thing that we were looking into, I was looking into the moon landing, because my thought was, if they can hold that lie, then big lies can be held for a long time. So let me look into the moon landing. It was kind of my number one thing to look into. So I was looking into that, and there was one day, and I still remember where we were. She was looking out, we were on this top story of our house. She was looking out the window, and she goes, so do you think the earth could be flat? I'm like, what? She said, do you think the earth could be flat? I'm like, no, what are you talking about? I said, no, planes go around it. I said, you went to, to the east going to Germany. I went to the west going to the Philippines. I'm like, the earth is round. She's like, oh, I thought we were going to verify things. I thought we were going to start from the beginning. I'm like, some things are fundamentally true.
So how did your wife become such a, I mean, I'm just curious, like, she obviously a free thinker. Is that the way she was raised? I mean,
no, not at all. I think that it was kind of the breaking away from the religion that gave her this open mind, that she was able to look at anything. And she was able just to say that. And then I told her, I kind of said, like, that's stupid. And she's like, well, oh, I thought, and I said, well, how would planes go around it if it's flat? And she's like, oh, I guess not. I'm like, yeah, don't. I said, we can't start that far behind. I said, we're not going to go through whether you're male and I'm female, or what, it's like, no, we're not going to do that. So, so then she kind of went off, and I thought it was over with. Well, it was like 2 weeks after that, or so, maybe it was a month after that, that I was looking still into the moon landing, and I came across Eric Dubé's site and saw that azimuthal equidistant map. And it was my first time looking. I'm looking at that map, and I'm like thinking, holy shit, people can go around the earth east or west. Like, so then I'm like, how do I debunk this? There's got to be a way to debunk, because I didn't want to tell my wife that I'm sorry for calling you stupid. I'm like, let me figure. So the very first thing I saw is, oh, people can't north-south circumnavigate on here. So all I got to do is go find north-south circumnavigation, and that will debunk this. And I'll just, move on to the next thing. Sure enough, you go looking for that. Can't find anybody doing it. Then I found the one guy who claims he has, the Sir Ranulph Fiennes, and he's cousin of the Queen, best friends with Prince Charles, the third baronet of his country. And they call him the greatest living world or the greatest world explorer. And then I found this court case that he was in, where he was having these people with him fake parts of the expedition, and that this girl had fallen in some crevasse when she was supposed to be faking an accident, but she actually really got hurt. So she sued him in court. She lost. He won, because they said you didn't have to fake the accidents. If you chose to fake them and you got hurt, that's on you, not on him. So anyway, he won that, but in court he admitted to having people fake part of the expeditions. So I'm like, all right, this is the only guy who's and it took him 4 years to go north-south circumnavigation. I just said, that's horseshit. And then I found this guy, ZQ Pilot. You can still find him if you look him up on Facebook. He has the record for quickest north-south circumnavigation in a single plane by himself, right? But he had these things attached to his plane called spider tracks, and you were able to actually go online and track exactly where his plane was. So I'm like, oh, this would be great. I want to see him go north-south circumnavigation. Well, he went North Carolina down to Brazil, and then he flew from Brazil he was supposed to go across to New Zealand, but he flew to the 90-degree marker, turned around, and he saw his plane go back to Brazil. It's like, what? So when he got there, everybody was asking, what happened? What's going on? He's like, oh, the weather was really bad at the South Pole, so we're just going to take a couple days and then go. So then he went to New Zealand across the water instead of across, then went to Hawaii, Alaska, North Pole, and then back to North Carolina. They gave him the freaking record. So that was the time where I said, okay, now the Earth's flat. So I knew at that point that there's no way you would ever give somebody a record for circumnavigation if they didn't circumnavigate, right? You can't call that circumnavigation. You didn't cross the South Pole.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, and then, I mean, there's been so many things since then.
And so that was in 2015 or 16. Your wife and yourself were basically saying, we're get everything that's in here. We're, freaking junking it, and we're starting from scratch. You know what I'm saying? And then you're initially kind of pissed off. You're like, wait a second, they've been lying to us since day one.
Yep.
And you probably had kind of an inclination going back to your Jesuit high school where they kicked you off the team so they could give the guy with the money on the team. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like this was foreign to realize that there are some scumbags out there trying their best to get over, from basketball all the way on to
and even CVS, right? They were scumbags at the top of CVS trying to get over.
Yeah. See, that's, man, there's so many similarities, man. I tell you, because same thing happened to me. Jaron, real quick, just side note, I remember trying out for baseball, and I was, again, 10 years older than you, but I'm from Maine, and I freaking kicked ass, took names. But I'll never forget, if I had like a tiny, I was just a poor white kid from freaking Peaks Island, Maine. I had no connections, nothing. We're on welfare, the whole thing. I'll never forget the guy who was competing for center field for me. His dad came up. He had all the fancy schmancy stuff, good time. He knew the coach. He had all the nice stuff. And it was just me, like, in my blue jeans. I didn't have freaking shoes or anything.
Right.
I knew right out of 7th grade. I knew right there I was going to get cut. Even though I easily hit over 350 or whatever it was during the freaking. I was so pissed. I'm still pissed. That was
like me. I was a great first baseman and a great hitter. And so and I was slow. That's just the way it was. And
first baseman.
Right. And I said, that's the one position that doesn't need to be fast. Right. But I guess from a outsider's perspective, like when you have, tryouts or whatever, if you're the slowest, they don't even, that's just the slowest guy can't make the team. So it was like, I had no chance, so that was upsetting. But basketball was really good. And, have a couple of records at my junior high. And
that you got cut for the rich kid.
Yeah. And then I became, and everybody says you could have made it the following year. And I was.
Yeah, no, dude. No. Same thing with me in basketball. Same exact thing. It wasn't for the rich kid, but I won't get into more because people. Anyway,
right.
But funny thing with me, what pissed me off was Ruby Ridge. I'll never forget. I said, Ruby Ridge, that is our government up to no good. And then obviously Waco. And then for some reason, they brushed under the screen rug Oklahoma City. And I said, there's something more to this. But then 9/11 happened, Jaron, and I fell for it like everybody else. I said, get those Muslims before they get us. And I tell you, man. I'm still ashamed of myself. I never say, I hate nothing like that. I never liked that. But it's like, I fell for a hook line. I was in the Army. I had gotten out 10 years before. I was this close to re-upping to go fight those Muslims before they fight us here. And dude, it's like they can do it. They can put this freaking thing in your head that says, oh, you're not a patriot or you're not a Christian unless you do this, that, the other. And it's so easy to fall for. And the funny thing was for me, it was like the climate change crap. I never bought that at all.
Yeah.
And then for me, it was the jabs. And this is well before COVID. It was the jabs. I remember the amount of hostility and vitriol. When I question anything about the jabs, this is just MMR, all the HPV. I said, there's something not right here. No one wants to admit that they don't know what the hell they're doing. There's no evidence that says all these things in conjunction with anything else, like Andrew Wakefield talked about.
Right.
And I tell you, Jaron, the amount of hatred and just vitriol.
Oh, I know it.
Based on absolute you're like, do you even know your own arguments? And that's where the reason I wanted to interview you more than anything is because when you were looking at the Christians, why is Christians don't even know their own arguments, man? And you're like, you don't even know really.
Yeah, it's just as bad. It's just as bad.
It is. Yeah. If you say anything about it, they're like, oh, you're not a Christian. I'm like, what? Or they'll call you an atheist. And you're like,
there's somebody who's doing that right now. There's somebody on YouTube that keeps going in front of his audience and saying, oh, this atheist chair. And it's like, I'm not an atheist. Knock it off. But it's called poisoning the well, right? It's what they do. I mean, because here's the thing is that what I wish people did see is that we are very understanding of these people who believe in science and love science. They just are getting all their information from a book.
Right.
They don't actually, but then Christians don't see that kind of the same thing is going on. Kind of the same thing. If you don't know the book well and you're just believing in the book just because, so it is kind of the same thing. But one thing I was going to mention, you said about the MMRs and stuff like that. So I took my son when he was 1, and when I denied that he was even mine until he was 6 months old. But then they took me to court and did the whole cheek swab and everything. So, and now you look at him, you're like, oh, clearly that's my son. But at the time, just a little baby. Like, I don't feel him. My mom said, go see him at the hospital and you'll feel something if he's yours. So I go to the hospital and look at it. Not mine, later. So she's like, I didn't have sex with anybody for months before you, and I haven't had sex with anybody since. I'm like, yeah, right, liar. She's like, it's definitely yours 100%. I'm like, yeah, right. Take me to court. So anyway, the thing about that is that when he got to be 3, 4, 5, you start to notice a little something that he had ADD, ADHD, was kind of all over the place. Well, eventually, like when he was like 8, one time I was talking to his grandparents, his mom's parents, and I said, do you remember anything happening around the time of him getting his vaccination or something? She's like, oh, I do remember at his third month vaccinations that he had seizures and we had to take him into the I'm like, oh my God. So I even tried to call like that hotline for getting reimbursement for them injuring your children. And they're like, oh, okay. And they're taking my information. And they're like, and when were the shots given? I said, well, this would have been in 2000. They're like, oh, you only have a year.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, what? How would we know in a year? He's 8 now. And now we see all the problems. They're like, no, you only had a year. So I'm like, oh, screw that. But anyway, from that moment on, I knew I would never give my children vaccines. So,
well, we had a daughter who was our second daughter was in the NICU her first month of her life, with the neonatal intensive care unit, and they gave her her jabs, and she had ventricular tachycardia, which means her heart just goes insane. Wow. Like a freaking double bass drum for Slayer or something like that. That's how fast it's beating. And anyway, and they were like, we don't have the paperwork. We already gave her jab, so we're just gonna go ahead and do it anyway. It's not,
boy,
can't hurt. And my wife's like, hell no. Anyway, long story, before that, they had given her the jabs. My wife's like, you already did this. And she goes, I know you did, because when you stuck her, she went into VTAC. You know what I'm saying? Because you stuck in her, it went into VTAC and tachycardia. She went to tachycardia. And she goes, oh, it has nothing to do. And I say, even back then, they didn't know what the hell they were talking about back then. But even I was like, well, I don't want to be Jenny McCarthy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, she's nuts, right? And I just, the whole thing is just so damn corrupt. And yet I got a guy right here who's upset with me even challenging the idea about 9/11. I'm just, and I know this guy well. I like him. He's mad at me. I can tell. It's sad that, like, it's okay to have an open mind. I don't understand, like, why.
Well, somebody like that, I wonder if they think, like, do they really? Because here's how I got my mom's husband on board, because he's an engineer. And when he first heard me, he's like, what is this talk about 9/11? I don't even like you talking about that. I'm an engineer, and we would know if something was up. But when I asked him, I said, okay, so the plane that flew into the Pentagon, he's like, yep. I'm like, why is there no video footage of that?
Right, none.
And he said, oh, there's got to be. And I said, yeah, you're right. There's got to be, because there's 27 cameras that line the front of that building. And I said, so find me that footage, and then you can talk to me. So then he came to me and then he bought the book, Where'd the Towers Go by Judy Wood. And that will get anybody. I mean, if the guy listening doesn't believe that, he needs to get that book. There's too much evidence that.
Where's the plane? Just where the plane is. It's just
not easy, right? And you look at the hole in the wall. The hole in the wall is like, they're not even big enough for a plane, and it's just ridiculous.
How about Shanksville? The plane in Shanksville. We're just
the ground ate it. It's still there if you go there.
I mean, literally, I don't want to laugh, because it's like, once you get awake to this, you're like, it's actually kind of silly in a way, and you're like,
kind of laughable, right?
The thing with the Chinese freaking thing here going, I'm just like, I mean, I don't even know what do you make of this, by the way, Jaron? I'm just like, this Chinese thing.
I actually heard somebody say that Dwayne Kellum, who's done a bunch of balloons, he looked at it and he said that balloon isn't the right size. Balloons are way bigger than that. Like, they have to grow as they get up there, right? They get up higher and the gas expands. So he thinks it's all like a pretend thing that is basically made of, cardboard and bullshit. The thing hanging from the bottom of it, and it looks like it's something of ours. So I don't know if they were trying to distract, or if they are going to. I don't know. Some people think they're trying to reveal that satellites are actually balloons. I don't think that, but
it's so stupid.
It's just silly. It's just stupid. I have seen a good couple memes though today. I saw the one that says another balloon was found, and it was Whoopi Goldberg wearing a white dress. It's within view.
Terrence Williams. I don't know if you know the black guy, Terrence Williams, on Facebook. He got banned from Facebook for saying it looked like Stacey Abrams, who ran for governor here in Georgia. My wife loves Terrence Williams. My wife showed me the theme and said, "This is a real Chinese."
You never know what their psyops. I mean, they want us to play the guessing game, because it really just takes you nowhere. They're really good at putting these things out there and getting people to. I mean, that was their best move with 9/11, right? And I think they do these on purpose. If you do these events in a way that you make sure that nobody can ever put all the pieces together. So you have a couple pieces, because what happens then is you have truthers, if you want to call them that, researchers, who end up arguing with each other,
Yes,
which is the entire goal of the government, right? Right versus left, black versus white, you name it. It's why there's sports. It's why everything, because as long as we fight each other, you never look up at who's holding everybody down. So this 9/11 was just another thing like that. Think about it. For 20 years, people argued back and forth. Was there planes? Wasn't there planes? Was it CGI? Was it controlled demolition? Was it nanothermite? And at the end of the day, nobody ever got in trouble for it. Nobody like
no one
Bush
ever
got,
will.
no.
Exactly.
So that's why I try not to get into those squabbles. Like I was somebody who researched pretty well the January 6th thing. And I was somebody who believes that Ashley Babbitt was shot and killed.
Right.
Now, there's a bunch of other people in the truth community that think that that was a hoax and that she never was killed and it was all set up. And so when people started to come at me about it, I'm like, listen, okay, whatever you say. If you want to say she died, or she didn't die, that's fine. Like, we shouldn't be arguing over that. That's what they want, right? They want that. And if I have my belief and it's different than yours, it doesn't change anything. But people would come after you and be like, Jaron thinks that this, that girl died. Like, yeah, I do. But anyway, it's just kind of weird that truthers end up going at each other. And they also, and I get it, this is a brilliant move on the controller's part, is if you're lied to about everything, then you doubt everybody, including other truthers, right? So then you've got the shill calling, and this person's a shill. And so it ends up that the truth movement doesn't go very far.
But you know something, Jaron? For me, it's like I don't even care anymore. It's like it's literally just like take away my son like in basketball and football. I just don't care. I just like whatever. Like Trump versus, I just literally don't care. I'm like it matters not at all to me, and it's very. And this is where I actually want to get. It's just liberating. Once you see that you can only control you, and you find your internal jihad, if you will. Right. That's all that matters, and that's like for me. Since I've been learning the truth, I had such a deep relationship with the creator of all things. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like it made much more than I ever had before, because now I don't look at it the way I used to. And like, us versus them, Russians or China, right. I really don't care. It's like, whatever.
Right. One of the big things that happened for me is when I became a YouTuber and started doing my videos, I got so many people messaging me from other countries. And I thought originally that people in other countries hated us.
Yes.
And then I learned that they're no different than us. And in fact, we all hate our governments. The governments are all corrupt. Everybody just wants to live free. They don't want to be. And then it's like, oh, so then I started to see the world differently, that there's a bunch of citizens that all want a better life. And then there's governments in every country colluding and then holding everybody down. Right. So it's not why didn't the Russians report us for not going to the moon? People don't realize that in Russia, they teach a different story. The story on the Russian schools is that they were the first ones in space, the first animal in space, the first orbit, the first woman. They did everything first, and then they realized that the moon would be a waste of time, so they didn't try and go to the moon. They tell the story that the Americans, to catch up, put all their money into the moon and then went and did nothing, and it was useless. Yeah. So both countries get to tell their own version of that story, and it was totally agreed upon. So, they're not going to throw each other under the bus. Nobody's going to say, oh, they actually don't go to space, and be like, you don't go to space either. Now the whole world's upset. Now look what you did. So they need to keep that lie going. Japan, China, they're all working together.
And yet the citizens don't give a rat's butt. They're like, Jaron's American. I got no problem with Jaron. I don't care if he's Russian. Nothing. You know what I'm saying? That's what's amazing to me.
Yeah, that was amazing to me too, because I really thought like people from other countries hated us. I thought if I talked to somebody from Iraq, they'd be like, I'll kill you. Right. But you talk to somebody from Iraq and they're like, no, we hate these guys, these governments.
Or if you talk to a Muslim, how dare you? They're going to ISIS on me. And then you realize.
No, they're great. Most of them are great people.
Oh, my goodness. I never forget. Someone told me this. He goes, let's think about this, Drew. If there's 1 billion Muslims, and let's just say 1% of the Muslims are like ISIS, we'd all be dead. I never thought about it like that. I said, you can't argue.
There's not that many people that are willing to just kill themselves for that. Just fly buildings into planes. 5 planes into buildings.
For a government. No. So now, with all that said, you left everything, you know what I'm saying? You and your wife, you find, you still believe in God, obviously. You've had a deeper relationship with God, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, because you've been able to kind of see through and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Jared, but maybe I'm projecting my own thoughts, see through the fog that has been put upon you of all the education that we've had. Now you can say, all that crap, send it to the side. It's just me and the big guy upstairs, and life is good. Is that, I don't know. I mean,
no, that's good. I mean, I've come to have a more personal relationship with the creator and to kind of shun things that were taught to me. because I realized that there's no, I mean, at least I haven't found it. There's no man that's not lying to me. What I mean by that is that everybody is colluding. Everybody is a conspiracy. There's conspiracies between the, the corner gas stations where one will call the other one and say, okay, you be 3 cents ahead of me for a weekend, then I'll be 3 cents ahead of you. But maybe their prices are 15 cents higher than everywhere else. But because there's a price, you get more, so everything is like that. And I get it. It's business and everything's about money. But no matter where you look, like the food we eat is just garbage. And you start to realize, well, what is Oreo going to use? The best chocolate possible for their cookies? Or are they going to use the cheapest dirtball, whatever it is, makeshift chocolate, just whatever tastes good and whatever, makes you addicted. So once we started learning, I gave up all pills right around 2015, said I would never do another pharmaceutical, gave up things like caffeine, gave up, some other things like that. So then my goal was and then we got started drinking distilled water, wanted to get healthy. So that was good. But then, I got closer with the creator. But what I really realized was that, at least to me, it seems like, especially looking back at the Jesuits, because then I started to learn how bad the Jesuits were and looking into them deeper, learned about how integral they've been in all the different sciences and setting up observatories and things like that. But I realized what they want is you to be in a belief system. They don't care. That's why they pushed me both to science and religion, because they didn't care which one I chose. They just wanted you to be in a belief system, because when you're in a belief system, they basically control you. They know exactly your every move. They can predict your every move. And both science and religion don't agree. So what I've kind of learned is that look at what they both disagree with, like manifestation, like collective consciousness, like morphic resonance, these kind of things, cymatics. Those are the things that both of them would say are satanic, right? Well, the church side would say that's satanic. You can't do remote viewing. And then the science side saying that's not true. There's no such thing because you can't prove it. Yeah. So the start of me realizing that there's a middle path was like the rice experiment from Dr. Emoto, which is if nobody's ever done
right. Yes, man.
That.
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
It's one of the most eye-opening. You get 3 jars and you put a equal amount of cooked rice in each one, seal them up.
You said that. That's where I found you. You said the right. I said, no flipping way. And it worked.
You got to do it. I did
it twice. And both times it worked.
Yeah.
You asked my kids, dude. I was like, I heard you say, I said, no effing.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
I heard you on Crow. I said, no way it's going to work. Anyway, go ahead to keep telling how it works. It's nuts.
Yeah, so you put, love on one jar and hate on the other, and then neutral on a third one, and you put them in the same cupboard in your house, and then you set your alarm on your phone for a time where you'll always be home, so 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. if you're always home. And then when it goes off, you walk over to the cupboard and you grab the negative rice, you close the cupboard, and you give it 30 seconds of berating, right? You just tell it it's a piece of garbage. It looks like shit. You hate it. And then take out the love rice and then give it 30 seconds of loving it. And I always tell people, you have to make sure you actually feel it. If you just go through the motions, of course, it's not going to work. Yeah, I love you. I hate you. Okay. Well, then you might as well not do it. But if you actually put in that emotion and then you leave the neutral one alone, after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it becomes glaringly obvious. And if you take it out to the whole, month or month and a half, the bad rice, the negative rice will be black. It'll be moldy. It'll have green in there. The neutral rice will be in between, and the love rice will be still looking edible. And it's amazing that we have the ability. So once I saw that, I said, okay, so those are things that science says that doesn't exist. Why? Because they can't calculate love or hate. Right. So there's no way you can do an experiment where you're like, oh, we added 17 grams of love. No, we can't, what are you going to do? So they just say it doesn't exist. Well, then on the other side, you've got religion saying the same thing, right? They wouldn't really think that exists either. So and then I did a show recently on my channel because somebody said they can do remote viewing. I'm like, I've never believed that. I don't think
I know what that is. What's that?
So it's supposedly, so the way they told me to do it is they said, so these 2 people were going to come on my show, and they said, a week before the show, they said, go find a picture of something in a magazine or a periodical or whatever, a picture of something. They said, concentrate on that for 5-10 minutes on that picture, and then also associate it with some number. They said, the number doesn't matter. Call it, you can make it up, JC-0444. Okay. So then they said, but think back and forth between that number and the picture, number and the picture, number and the picture. So I did that. And then they said, okay, now give us the number. So I said, okay, it's JC-0444, whatever. So they said, okay, we'll see you on your show and we'll draw for you what you were looking at. I'm like, yeah, right. So I'm like, yeah, sure you will. So then we get on my show, and
don't tell me they did this. Don't tell me.
It was the most, what I looked at was the Grand Canyon, And the guy drew that thing in the Grand Canyon. It's got like the end, the thing that come. It was insane. I mean, I immediately knew it's real.
No.
And here's how they described it. They said that when you think of it like there's a bunch of drawers in the ether, little drawers, right? Like a library drawer, right? And they said that we can put thoughts out there, but by me focusing on that one drawer, JC0444, that they were also able to focus on that drawer. So they were able to open it up and see what I was doing in there. Now they want me to try it too, because they say you could do the other end of it. But these people have been like trained. They're like good at it. They do it all the time. So that's on my channel. I think still it's just called remote viewing. And then I had him come back and do it again, because the first time it was like pretty good. But at the same time, I was like, well, I could see it being lucky. But then the second time was just a no-brainer. And nobody could have known. What I did is I took the magazine, looked at it. My wife knew that was it. Folded it up, put it in an envelope, put the number on it. And then I set it behind here on the shelf. And then the day of the show, after they did their drawings, I took it up, opened it up, and showed it. And people were amazed. Now, most people thought I faked it, but this is why I always tell people, do it yourself.
Right.
I mean, I can't. Why would I fake that? Like, I'm not trying to prove it. Oh, now I'm going to make a bunch of money because remote viewing is real. It just told me that there is something to do with that. And then if you look into it, the United States military has been using it forever. They use it for
I gotta watch those videos. I seen that the thumbnail you have on remote viewing. Frankly, first thing I thought was remote viewing, like a funeral home or something like that.
No,
dude, that's crazy.
That you can actually. So what they do is, like, let's say they're going to go find. Let's just use for an example some guy in a cave. Not Osama bin Laden. I don't think that happened, but let's say that they're going to do something like that. Then they hire these people with these remote viewers to actually scout the location. They're going to.
Well, it's funny because I got done reading this book, and I'll get you out of here in a second. But I don't have the book right here. But anyway, this guy right here, Tom Cowan, who's doctor, and he had written a book on heart, like what caused heart attacks and whatnot. And along the same times I heard you did the rice test, he was talking about the water. You know what I'm saying? The new biology of water.
Right.
Just talk about, grounding. You were talking about this Austin the other day going out, and I say, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. This is a little bit too crazy for me. Then I heard you talk about the rice test, and I said, I don't know if Dr. Cowan's talking about it, Jaron, both people I respect. I said, let me try the rice test, and I did it. I did with an apple too, by the way. I did an apple and rice.
Too,
both times. I was like, dude, this is freaking nuts. And it's funny. I posted both videos on my YouTube channel. You still be stunned how many people think they just get like visceral, like angry. But I'm like, I don't get this. It's weird. I'm like, dude, I'm just doing it. I mean, you don't have to agree with it, but like,
right. And then those people, if they're like really into science and things like that, they'll be like, oh, I'll do it. And it won't work. But you're like, yeah, because you won't go through with it. It won't work.
Of course it won't work because
if you're not actually putting the effort into it, the love and the hate, then of course it's not going to work. And then that's not proof that it didn't work. So that's why I tell anybody who doubts it, you have to do it yourself, and you'll make your own choice. But
give it a fair shake. Don't just say this ain't gonna work. And I mean, my wife's got 8 brothers and sisters, man. Her dad died young. She's a skeptical skeptic, if that makes sense. I can't get anything over on her. Trust me. She knows everything I'm up to. And I said, look, this, and she goes, that's crazy. And then it's like, if she can buy it, my goodness. Anyway. All right, dude, I got you on here for an hour. Let's do it. I didn't want to keep this long.
That's okay.
That's fantastic, dude.
You can finish off with anything else you want. I got another couple minutes.
Yeah, man. I just, right here, Michael Jaco, Navy SEAL, Jill crushes. She, this is a lady who's commenting right now. You can't see it, I don't think, but she said Navy SEAL did remote viewing, a guy named Michael Jaco. That's crazy.
Yeah, they've got, I mean, if you look into it, just look up remote viewing, U.S. government. I mean, it's been used in the military. Now, science, again, will say that there's no proof of it. But again, how are they going to test that?
But I mean, it's kind of like no proof that it doesn't work. Kind of like, I don't believe that the rice experiment didn't work. You're like, yes, but I did it for myself. I saw it with my own very eyes.
And they'll say, oh, it was, what do they call it? Confirmation bias. It's like, yeah, you can say whatever you want, but there's clearly one of the rices looked like shit and the other one looked edible. How is it just so happens to be that it's the one that they should all decay the same? And
not only that, but you've done it on multiple occasions. I think it goes back to the Jesuits and the religion, and the Jews, the Jesuits, Masons. I don't even care who the boogeyman is of the day. I literally could care less. The Nazis, they don't care. They just want people to be in their. They got the Bible and they said, if you don't agree with my King James, you are not believing the true word. And they don't care. They just say you have to believe. It's just they want you to compartmentalize or whatever that word is. Red versus blue.
Right.
And it's just and once you break free from that, I just wish, I don't know, man. It's like liberating, Jared. It's like I feel great. Do you still get kind of frustrated though? Like you've been at this a lot longer than I have. Do you get frustrated? Like, how can people not only not see, but it's like they don't even want to? It's like they want to stay in their,
Yeah, I guess it took me a while to learn that truth isn't for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once I learned that, and I kind of accepted that, like it's not my job to convince people.
Yeah,
it's because think about it. In any argument you've ever had, you've never convinced somebody in real time. It's just not something that happens. It's like usually what happens is you'll have a argument with somebody, and then months down the road, maybe they'll realize that they were wrong. But it's never like in real time that you're arguing with somebody about, and they're like, "Oh, you're right. Actually, the Earth is flat." Right? That's just never happens. So once I learned that, it's like, okay, my job is to plant the seed. At least let people know that something else exists, and then recommend that they look into it. Right? And then that's all. That's really my job. After that, it's on them. I found out with my friends the hard way at first. As soon as I found out about flat Earth, I went to them and said, "Oh, the Earth's flat," and they're like, "Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Oh, I'm sure you know," and the physicists don't. And it's like, all right. So then I kind of left them alone and stopped talking about it completely. Well, months and months and months went by, and then remember when Elon Musk put the Tesla in space? So then they called me, then they started calling me saying, "Is this supposed to be real?" Like, yes, that's supposed to be in space. They're like, "No, it's fake as could be." I'm like, "I told you." And they're like, "Okay, now I want to talk to you about flat." So I think if you leave it open, then people will find you as like a
it's so real it has to be, or so fake it has to be real.
Boy, yeah, that's when that happens. You can tell it's real because it looks so fake. Which is the dumbest statement ever. It's the equivalent of somebody saying you can tell she's fat because she looks so thin.
Yeah, that whole thing with Elon Musk, so that now he's a right wing guy. I'm like, dude, Elon Musk is such a plant. It's mind boggling. It's just I don't care.
People shouldn't fall for that one because he's definitely involved. In fact, he's like kind of dumb, really.
I mean, if anyone just looks at their newspapers.com collection of the older Elon Musk, you're like, this guy's just a stooge, man. I just think he's a never mind his dad and his mom was a glamour model. His dad, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if
his dad married his stepdaughter and had a baby with her.
After he married his freaking wife, who was like some Canadian glamour model or what? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you mean the one that's Elon? Yeah, Elon's mom, and then after her, he married her daughter.
No.
Yeah. Elon Musk's dad is married to Elon Musk's sister.
Dude, this is like freaking Einstein all over again, man. Holy crap. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So Elon Musk's dad's married some hot freaking model from Canada who's smoking hot. And then she gets older. He goes, I'm going to marry. Whatever.
Yeah, and I forgot the age difference too. It's like a lot.
Dude, it's like, it's the funny thing is you start looking, and it's funny because you start looking and you can't help but laugh. Like you start seeing the Einstein crap and you're just like, and like how he was promoted and all this stuff. You're like, oh my goodness, man. But they always got to have a boogeyman. It's got to be that level of, the Jesuits or the Jews or the Muslims or the Catholics or the Baptists. There's always got to be one group of people to focus our ire on. And it's like,
yeah, they do that. Right? They just like to distract you.
It totally.
Yeah. His name is Errol Musk. He's 76. He has 2 children with his stepdaughter, Jana, 35. And he was married to her mom for 2 years during the 90s. So it's a stepdaughter, and they're married now with 2 kids.
You can watch the Owen debate with your boy Jim Bob on the Trinity.
What?
Owen,
when's that?
Wednesday, 12 p.m. your time. No, 12 p.m. Mountain Time. Owen and Jim.
Oh, that's great. I don't like Jim Bob at all. So.
I know you don't. It's funny. It's weird. I don't know what his issue is with it. It's strange, man. I'm like, I like Jim Bob.
It's Christians have, Christians don't like me much because I question everything. And I think that to think, just like I say about space, right, is they lie to us about everything. So to think that they lie to us about everything, but they tell us the truth about 25 trillion miles away is literally the dumbest thing you can believe. And people believe it. People are just like, no, they lied to us about this and they lied to us about that, but they're telling the truth about the size of the sun. Yeah, right. Okay, whatever you think, whatever you say. The sun is not 867,000 miles wide. It's a joke.
The thing that got me was Polaris, that they changed it from 430 light years away to 330. Now I think it's gone back again. I'm saying, 2,000 trillion miles. That's science right there. But the Jim Bob thing into
never see that far. It's stupid.
Will be a lot of fun. I think it is. If people still have that belief, and if anyone who doesn't see it the way they see it, they're, I hate to say it, but they're heretical or heretics. And I wish people would get out of that mindset. And I'm sure I still have it, frankly, in my own some areas of me. But once you break free more and more of that mindset of everyone else is wrong except for me because they don't see it, I just think it opens up a different world, man. And it just makes it makes you humble. And I think being humble
Yeah.
is a good way to be. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I
Yeah.
think this is a test. For myself, I think this is a testing ground. It is amazing. I think it exists only in the mind of God. Like God is responsible for all this,
Oh yeah.
and I think that it's a test. It's a very difficult test, and few will pass it. And then I think we most likely come back if you're in kind of that middle group. And then I think that some people die and sleep forever. So I don't believe in hell. I don't believe in heaven per se. I think that there is more beyond this. There's another plane of existence or another test, if you will. But I feel very few people probably move on to that because you have to basically shield yourself from all these lies,
Yeah.
and that it's difficult to do. It's difficult to do. So my difference between opinion between Jim Bob and me is that Jim Bob says that no matter what the creator does, we're not allowed to question him based on our morals.
Right.
And to me, I'm like, no, God gave me my morals.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm supposed to use them to determine who is God. If the Old Testament God is, advocating for slavery, which he clearly does, he says, hey, you can go take slaves from this nation and they can be your property for life. And then you can bequeath them to your children. It's like God, no creator would ever say that. He's not, the creator doesn't allow you to own other humans. So that's enough for me to say, okay, well, whoever was writing about the Old Testament God is just a man who's writing their opinion of what they think God would say, not what actually God would say. So then, Jim Bob gets real upset at that and says, and I'm like, I tried to get it out of him. Like, well, at what point would you read the Bible and be like, oh, this isn't God? I said, what if it said in there that he went down and raped all the women?
Right.
Like, because what Jim Bob's opinion is that we have to believe in God and we have to worship him regardless of what he does. And so like that to me is part of the test. The test, if I was the creator, I would do that. I would put that down there and I'd be like, let's see if these people actually worship me no matter what it says I did. And so the difference between me and you guys, or me and Christians for the most part, is I say God's never killed anybody. And when I say that, I get yelled at. Oh,
Or they
he's
call you
killed
atheist.
millions.
Or they'll call you an atheist. That's what pisses
Right.
me off. I don't like just because you don't see it the way that guy does makes you an atheist. An atheist means you don't.
No, I clearly know that there's a
Right.
creator. You can just look around the world. The world is created. It's got
100%.
intelligence behind it. Look at our DNA. Everything. So that's without any question. But then to think that creator also wrote a book and also did all these things, and then I get told that the Old Testament God is the same as Jesus. It's like, no, they're completely different characters. Like Jesus is love your neighbor, love your enemy, turn the other cheek. When the Old Testament God was like, kill everybody. So like, that's not the same person. And he even says, I'm never changing. He says, I'm God. I'm not a man. I'm not a son of man. I'm your only savior. But then he came as a son, the son of man, as your savior. None of it makes sense as far as them being the same character.
You love the debate, man, that they're going to have on
That's
Wednesday.
going to be interesting on the Trinity. Yeah, because the Trinity isn't mentioned in the Old Testament.
How dare you?
I know. But
it's just funny too because I look at some, I do my daily Bible reading and I find some I said like Ecclesiastes. I'm like, that doesn't sound divinely inspired to me. It sounds like a guy who's, this is Solomon trying to get with some chicks that he probably going to be, getting jiggy with it. You can't convince me that's divinely inspired. And people say, well, it's all divinely inspired. I say, I don't think so. I don't think that is. And then you don't believe in the King James, or I said, well, how did the King James get made? And I don't know if you saw that. I did a video on it today with Terry Eicher. He said, the King James took the Tyndale Bible and they took out the words flat earth. It literally says in the Tyndale Bible, flat earth in King James. So it's like, so who's right here? I mean, if this is God's inspired word, then there's somebody that's not right. And, Tyndale was predecessor of King James. And the whole thing's just weird to me. And I sit there at the end of the day, I just get on my knees and I say, the creator of all things, I happen to believe Jesus rose from the dead. I don't know the whole mystery behind it. And I'm very comfortable with that. And I just absolutely don't know what happens next. But I tell you, man, it's like and just going back to circle this whole thing up, when you don't have to go back to a crappy old job, you can take the time to actually think this stuff through. And where you got to go back to a crappy old job, you got to say, I got to get the freaking snow shovels out, but you're in Monterey. You don't have time for all this. And that's why I just wish people would say, how much money do you actually need to have to live? And look, man, I got a mortgage. I got 4 kids. We probably live pretty large relative to the world as a whole. I know we do, but it's just like, how much money you need? I think people just have this feeling like they can't get by unless they're making the bank that they have while they're working. I said, I don't know. I'm not sure because I quit my job, dude. I was making 200,000 a year, Jared.
Oh, geez.
And I quit in 2017, 2018. I didn't make crap. You know what I'm saying? It's nuts. And I had to take basically my same, dude. I'm literally saying you and I have a lot of the same trajectory. Took out 130,000 on my 401k, penalty and taxes to basically put 100,000 bucks in my bank account so we could live on.
Right.
And I said, when that money's gone, I'm going back to work. And thank the good Lord, it didn't happen. It could happen again, but it hadn't happened. And this is 5 years now. And I said, when that money, that's it, we're done. And I'm investing essentially in my business, and it worked. But it's scary, man. But
it's scary. But then again, I've never once regretted it, which
yeah,
is,
100%.
And I think that what people do is they get very stuck in it, and they just, it's too scary. But really, ask anybody who's ever quit their job, and they're all happy about it.
real quick, did you see? You do too much content, but Owen today was talking about Chat GPT. There's a word you can't say, even if you would have said this one word, it would save 6 million Jews. And the Chat GPT said, never say that word ever, even if it saves 6 million Jews. And I'm just thinking back, like,
really said that?
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. It's nuts. I'm sitting there thinking, this is what we're worried is going to take us over. Is that crap? It kind of going back to how dare you say anything about that could be, your own perception of the Bible, how you could question anything about it. I'm like, but I think God makes us congruent to be able to question. I think he gave us this gray matter to ask questions. I don't think God wants us to be just mindless.
There's no way he put us here in order to read a book, believe it, and then just sit at your house and wait for Jesus to come back.
But no way. Why would he do that? If he did that, he wouldn't need us to begin with. I mean, I just don't understand. Anyway. Dude, you're the man, Jaron. I tell you, Jaronism, I'll put links to the show notes if you guys are interested in Jaronism stuff. It's Jaronism on YouTube, on Rockfin. The guy just crushes, man. And you've been a big impact in my life, big man. I just wanted you to know that. The rice experiment for me was everything. I'm telling you right now, I said there's no flipping way this is going to work. I'm
going to show you something real quick here. See if I share my screen if I can. Just one thing. And then
do I need to share, let you do it? Or
I think it'll let me. You'll have to put my little screen up there if I do it. Share screen. Screen one. Okay. Can you? Should be on there. And tell me when I'm on there.
There you go.
Okay, so this is the remote viewing. I just want to show you. So this is one of the things that this guy drew that he thought I was looking at. And let me go back to 119. I think this is what she drew. So she drew this here, like she was talking about a cliff. She saw cliffs and like this. She said there's cliffs. It's like waterfalls kind of motion. It's down from the cliffs, people standing up top of cliffs. And then this guy came and showed this, this one here. So he kept showing this little circle with a thing in the middle of it, like a keyhole, but he was saying that there was people gathering around it. There was like a river, water. So it was pretty crazy. Then I started asking people which of these did they think it was, because then I showed the picture that I was looking at, and this was it. What's crazy is that look at this thing. So you go back and look at what he was drawing,
crazy. Yeah.
And that's like identical to what he was drawing. So
literally that.
Yeah, like I think I had it right here. I mean, he's drawing this. He kept saying like there's a stop, there's something in the middle, there's a circle, and they don't know what they're drawing. They're just guessing, right? So pretty crazy. And then look at that. I mean,
that's nuts, man.
It's the thing in the middle with the. I mean, it's literally the same.
That's literally this. I mean, he could literally draw the Dallas Cowboys football helmet. You know what I'm saying? Of all the things in the world to draw, he could literally draw a freaking Viking with horns, and yet look at that.
And so and that's what I was focusing on, was the idea of this corner of the and then she talked about water falling off the cliffs, and it was like, I mean, I don't know how they would have just guessed I would looked at but it'd be worth doing again, because I think these people do have some sort of and it's anybody can do it. They say it's just you can hone in on it, you can become better at it.
Well, the crazy thing is, you got pets, Jaron?
I did. Yep.
Well, like I got 2 dogs. They literally know each other's. I mean, they're on a different wavelength, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the Rupert Sheldrake did the morphic resonance thing, where they did a experiment where they would send somebody away from the house, the dog would be waiting at home, and they were supposed to start thinking about going home like 10 minutes before, or whatever, and going home at different times, and the pets knew that they were coming home. It's like crazy. I don't remember the experiment how it went down, but that just tells us that there's so much that we don't know, that we're hidden from. So that's why when people say the Bible's true, Christianity's true, I'm like, okay, you could say that, but it's in every hotel room for free in the middle drawer. So I don't think that when the truth is out there, we don't see the government just handing out the truth. We see the government handing out lies, and they hide the truth. So, and people are like, oh, Christianity is so held back. It's like, no, it's not. Creflo Dollar makes $14 million a year. Joel Osteen has a $14 million house. Like these are not held back. Those people are allowed to operate with immunity, with no taxes. The government will take taxes from you no matter what, but except for if you're a church. If you're a church, like, oh, go ahead, we don't take your taxes. Why? It's because I think the church creates the person that the government wants, right? They want the Jesus Christ. They want, when the government comes after you, they want you to let them do whatever they want and let them hang you on a tree. They want you to be complacent. They want you to be, turn the other cheek, love your enemies, because what it does is it allows the evil ones to reign supreme. And that's what we're dealing with right now, is a bunch of evil bastards who get away with it because a bunch of people are waiting for Jesus to come back.
Well, there's a guy named Harry Hubbard on YouTube, and I'm going to interview him one time here pretty soon too. And he talks about that with the old, the Dead Sea Scrolls and stuff. He said, this stuff is, in terms of what's called block Hebrew versus Phoenician, Phoenician script.
Right.
But he's like, this is all fake, dude. I'm putting words in his mouth. So if he's watching, I doubt.
Yeah. Again, I mean, it's just, what are the chances? 1950.
The same year as Israel, by the way.
Right.
Literally the same year. I'm shocking. Anyway, his whole thing was, the whole point was to get you to capitulate, to obey, with Paul, just do what your leaders say. We want you to capitulate, do what your leaders say. Because
anybody who thinks that the Bible is God's word, you just need to go to Romans 13 and tell me how you believe that that's God writing that. It says all governments are placed there by God. Yeah. To go against a government is to go against God. And did you get a vaccine?
Well, what I'm saying, that's how do you square that circle, man?
You just have to realize that governments wrote it. If governments went to the scribe and said, "Hey, scribe, write in there this, and this," and he's like, "I don't want."
Well, this one time, Jaron, is okay. I didn't want to get it because there was no scientific evidence. But you're like, wait a second. The government said they were giving you free French fries.
Right.
Come on.
Right. And then thank God that I didn't take that. Really, thank God. It's funny because my son is 2, and they're like calling me like, "Hey, I'm already like setting up our children who aren't vaccinated for the future because it's just going to be a bunch of tainted blood."
Yeah, I cannot imagine the idea of taking my young child to. What kind of brainwashing do you have to?
I'll finish with this. This is the most insane thing to me. Imagine the amount of evidence I would have to side with the American government and big pharma against other citizens. It's astronomical. And that's not even what happened. What happened was we had government and big pharma talking, and then people filming us for not wearing masks, reporting you, yelling at you, calling you anti-science. It's like insanity to me. It's like, how do you think? First of all, why would big pharma create a product that makes you healthy? It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. It's like, what would you think if Oreo came out with a cookie? Here's our new cookie. It makes you not like Oreo cookies. You'd be like, what? Why would you do that? You're not going to make that cookie because that's going to hurt your business. That's what Pfizer does. They make a product that you think is going to make you healthy when they make money when you're not healthy. So it's just stupidity. And it's, and then the news is all funded completely by big pharma. So that's why the news just sits there and says safe and effective, safe and effective. They won't even mention that, the Darryl Hamlin thing, or, the guy who passes out in the football game. They don't even mention, it's like, if it was real reporters, somebody would think, we got a lot of sports stars that are, passing out on the field that they've never done before. I wonder what we've done differently the last couple of years that would, that mandatory shot, maybe I should look into that. But they act like it doesn't exist. So it's like not even real reporting. Everybody we get is a talking head.
It's not even that. I expect that from those guys. It's the regular run-of-the-mill Americans or just people.
Well, let me explain that, because that is because of people working. So
yes,
when I was a store manager, my entire connection with the world was the 30 minutes I drove to work and I listened to the news. And what people don't realize is you adopt that belief system. Whoever's reading the news to you, because whatever their opinion is of a certain event, you adopt that. So you go to the water cooler at work and somebody says, "What do you think about this event?" And you're just going to repeat whatever the news told you. Otherwise you can't involve yourself in society. So that's what they do well. So all the people that were against or pro mask, thought COVID was going to kill them, all those people are people that had jobs because
absolutely
they didn't have they don't have their own opinions. They're actually given their opinion from the mainstream news. So that's why that happens. And then this actually might have bit them in the back, though, because a lot of people who then came home who didn't work for a long time, had time to look into things, that's when you really, you can expose some of these things. So the other thing is, I mean, if you think about it, is there anybody that was anti-vax that's now pro-vax?
Right, 100%, man.
No. But is there people that were pro-vax that are anti-vax?
Tons of people, just like these
Might have hurt
doctors.
them, and we hate to go through 3 years of that, and they'll probably do it again. I wouldn't doubt it. I see people wearing masks again. Is they requiring that or something? Idiots.
I saw a guy just yesterday, Jared, coming out. I got some coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. This guy, heavy guy, coming out of Dunkin' Donuts, and we're in Georgia, nice day, and a big guy with 2 bags of Dunkin' Donuts, but he was masked up, man. And how dare you not have your mask on? He didn't give me a hard look. I was like, okay.
Here's what you should do when you see some of those people in a mask. Just like when they're not looking at you, say, "Excuse me, ma'am," and then when they turn to you, and then say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I saw the mask," and then you ask them a question and piss them off. Do that to some men; they'll really not like that very much.
I can't, because I literally look at it. I'm like, I can't. You know what I'm saying? I'm like,
no, and like even people like I was proud of my whole life. Like my dad, I thought, I think he thought we didn't go to the moon and stuff like that. But then one day we're at his house and he's talking about his wife, and he's like, and I'm getting pissed at the grocery store. There's people going down the aisle the wrong way. I'm like, Dad, I'll fucking knock you so hard. Oh my goodness. And then speaking of that, at the same time, my sister and my dad's wife are talking, and she's like, do you know people are faking those paper certificates with those shots? And she's like, yeah, I know. And she's like, I think we need like an app on our phone that they can set. I'm like, oh my God. What? I mean, they have just done I have to tip my cap all the time to the controllers.
They're incredible. Literally, they're incredible. They're like, I guarantee if you're the guy from Pfizer, you're like, I can't believe this is working. I can't believe this is working.
They're just supposed to be laughing, drinking their Crevassier or something, and just
they're sitting there thinking, normally people like your dad who are not dumb, but they're like, yeah, we should have an app on our phone to validate if we've been. Like, what?
And I think they did that on purpose too. They did the paper ones on purpose, knowing people would fake them. Then they would have some sort of controversy about that. Now, the next time when it happens, they're going to be like, well, we can't do the paper ones. Remember, people were faking them.
Right.
People will be like, oh, you're right. People were faking them.
So but they'll always say, if you want to keep your job, you will do what we say. And people say, I can't afford to lose my job because I don't know how I'll get by.
Well, do you know, like housing the homeless for a year is $20 billion. Well, I mean, NASA makes, so $20 billion is not much. If you look at our entire budget, it's not much at all. And that would solve homelessness. But the reason they can't do that is because they need the homeless to scare the middle class.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, absolutely. You're one paycheck away from being those guys.
They need those people on the tent on the side of the freeway. They would, if they could they would house them. We have the ability to do so. But then you wouldn't be afraid of losing your job. You would be like, oh, I'll just go live in a shelter like those guys.
They'll say, if you don't do this, you will be like that. And people say, okay, I'll keep doing this because I don't want to.
We see the crazy people wandering around talking to themselves, carrying carts full of stuff. And you're like, that's the last thing I want to do. And so you stay with your dead end job. Yep. Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I'll let you go. I know you got the rest of your show.
Hey,
Tell everybody I said
you're the best, Jaron. Love you, man.
Hey, peace,
keep crushing, man. Thanks, buddy.
Later.
Thanks, man. All right, I'm still here, guys. If you guys have stuff to talk about, I mean, that was, for me, that's just a world of fun. I loved it. I don't have to agree with everything everyone says, and that'd be crazy to do so. I just, and you don't have to get mad at me if I have people on here who have a different opinion than you. It's okay. It's okay. It doesn't mean if someone has a different opinion that we have to, put up walls and, call everybody evil. I know I probably do that on occasion. Because my side is a good side, the other side is the evil side. The reason for that guy is because he was one who opened my eyes up to the rice experiment. And for me, the rice experiment was, I couldn't believe it, man. I was like, this can't work. And I had just got done reading Tom Cowan's book on what causes heart attacks. And critical rational thinking, right on, Carl. How dare you, Carl? Carl says, he wants to call CRT critical rational thinking while he names himself pooping while standing. Okay. Jill said the shots were against my Christian beliefs. 100% Jill. It's freaking evil, man. No other way around that. Hey, thanks, Jeremy. Jeremy's crushing, man. Jeremy's on Rumble. He's crushing. And I just, look, just because you have a job doesn't mean you're a bad guy or anything. I'm not saying that. I mean, we all have to have jobs, for heaven's sake. I mean, I have to, follow this. Yeah, right. That's it. Right on, Andrew. It's okay. There are people out there who have a different thought process than me. How dare they? How dare they? And the thing is, it's interesting is my thought processes changes as I age and get new information, and other people might too, and might not. I mean, right now, I mean, it's just I'm a different guy than I was 5 years ago in terms of my mind. You know what I'm saying? I just am. I think I'm a better man for it, but I'm also a different guy than I was 10 years ago because I never understood like politicians like, I've always been pro-life since I was in my diapers. I've always been for the Second Amendment since I was in my diapers. I don't like that crap. I like it when you come to a place that you've had a chance to think about research and live. Your lived experience is what brought you to believe in X, Y, Z. And I don't think just because your mom told you should be a pro-American or pro-Second Amendment guy, then you're. I never understood this. Why is it bad to change your position? Never understood, man. We have a mind to think for ourselves. Yeah, but people and I. And it's sad to see my man. I'm drawing a blank. His name Tom, who got. I could tell he was not happy, but yeah, I like the guy. Tom's a good guy, man. I very much like him and enjoy his, being part of the channel. But my thing is, it's not unreasonable to think the U.S. government can do bad things. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. And then you look at Ruby Ridge. That was the U.S. government doing bad things. And what happened to Lon Henrik, something like that, the guy who shot Randy Weaver's wife, Vicky Weaver, and child. What happened to Lon? Nothing. Nothing. Got promoted. All right. We know what happened in Waco. And this is just the modern stuff. Never mind the stuff they did, Operation Move, and all these other things that the FBI, the CIA have done throughout the past. I just don't think it's outside the realm to consider that maybe there was an involvement. I always thought that Oklahoma City thing, there was something involved there. I didn't know what it was, but I remember they used that. Bill Clinton, I'll never forget it. He used Oklahoma City to go after the militia and Rush Limbaugh. I said, how ironic is that? Bill Clinton used, Pablo got your pot plants again, right on. Yeah, that's right. Right on, man. He used that to attack Rush Limbaugh, people on the right, the Michigan militia. And I just said that this doesn't happen by happenstance, man. Timothy McVeigh, we have evidence of various people who are set up to blow up the building. Now, we could call them nuts or whatever, but I think they have a right to have a fair shake when they're patriots. They serve the country well. And they were said, hey, we need you to go to Oklahoma City and bomb the Murrah building. And the guy said, I'm not going to do that. And he said, well, we need you to. And, you could call that guy crazy. I forgot the guy's name off the top of my head. But, there was a guy who was told to do that. He said, I'm not going to do it. And he was a patriot. He wasn't just some, he wasn't a crazy guy. He was Randy Weaver. You know what I'm saying? And anyway, so then you have Oklahoma City, which led to the beginning of the big takeover, from the federal government. And then, of course, we led right into 9/11. It's just, what is that? Janet Reno, 100%, man. Janet Reno. See, that's the thing. The old lady new to VR. Right on. All right, there you go. I'm not familiar with you. I completely see. One of the things that I like to do is I like to hear some. I was like, I don't think we went to the moon anymore. I don't, and I don't think that if you're new here, you might say, I can't believe you. I don't think we do. And the more I listen to the ideas of the people who are propagating that, I was on a chat, well, not chat, but a YouTube thing. And a guy said, because I could not believe I was watching the Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye, and some lady, I don't know who it was, saying these are the proofs we went to the moon. I was like, all right, I want to hear that because literally, I don't want to think that we didn't go to the moon. I want to think we did. I don't want to think that the government lied to us. I want to think that we did. So I'm watching this video. I'm like, that's it. It was weak. Basically, their evidence was it would cost too much to fake it. I said, what? It costs more to fake it than to go was essentially the evidence. And I said, that's not very convincing. Anyway, and so I'm on there and I'm putting a couple comments on there and, I get obliterated because, if it's got Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson, all the moon people are going to jump on you. And this one guy posted 31 reasons we went to the moon. And I said, well, okay, that's good. And the first 5 is like, you could destroy those in 2 seconds flat. I was like, oh, these are easy, man. You know what I'm saying? The reflector off the moon. I said, well, they were doing that before the moon, people were on the moon. MIT was reflecting, supposedly, if you want to believe it, lasers off the moon in like late 50s and early 60s, well before Apollo 11. And there's some other ones I said, well, those are easy. So I said, all right, well, I'll give you time to lick your wounds, you know what I'm saying? Because I just smoked you, but I'll come back and look at the other 26 or whatever he had. I come back and he deleted his comments. And I said, man, so why'd you delete your comments? I mean, I that was an interesting, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of cocky, but I was like, look, the reflectors of the moon has been so you can destroy that easily, just by the fact we did that before the Apollo 11 happened. Anyway, but whatever. And I'm sitting there thinking you could make a case that we could not do that if the Russians didn't have something on the moon. Okay, we can argue that, but that's again, people on the moon, proven by reflectors off the moon. That's not congruent. And I said, why'd you debate? You know, I don't know who he was. Demon Runner, that's what his name was. Demon Runner. I said, why you delete your comments, man? Because I thought I was really looking forward to reading the other 26. I was. Because there are some ones that are evidence that I'm like, yeah, okay, that's interesting. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know the answer to it. Like, for instance, how can you can see Polaris? You can't see Polaris in the southern hemisphere, and if in the northern hemisphere, you can't see the Southern Cross. And that's a good argument, or the Venus against like a flat Earth. That's interesting to me, and because I don't know the answer to that. And it's if you start looking a little bit deeper, you say, okay, there's some good reasonings against that argument to prove a globe Earth. It doesn't prove the Earth is flat, but there are reasons for that. But I just talked to God today, or I said, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know why I can't see the Southern Cross in the Northern Hemisphere, or vice versa. And there are some instances of that, of some reasons for that. That I said, okay, that's pretty interesting. I don't know, but not to be open to idea. It just goes back to the vax stuff. All these people say it's science. Why would they lie? Why would they lie about the vaxes? I'm like, I don't even know if they know they're lying, frankly. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm sure there's some big guy up here someplace who knows he's lying. But I said, but why would you not be open to the idea that there might be more that you can see here? And anyway, the more vitriol I get on a certain topic, the more I know I'm onto something, because it shows that people, they have a need to believe and propagate, whatever that word is, promote an idea to validate something that's going on internally for them. And I'm not like that. I just don't. I don't have that same. I'm open to many things. Hell, I'd be even open up to anti-Second Amendment stuff, but I've already been down that road so many times. It's silly to go down that now. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, I could if someone were to say, "Hey, the AR-15 is." I don't know what. I don't know what would convince me to be anti-Second Amendment anymore. I don't know, but I mean, if someone has a good idea, I'd be welcome to hear that. But the reason I will never be convinced is a rifle is just a tool. It's nothing more than a tool. It's an inanimate object. It cannot be good nor bad. It just is. So to say I'm going to ban a rifle, it'd be the equivalent of saying I ban this because the damage a human being can do. It's just as silly to me. I mean, literally, I just say, huh? Well, but a rifle can shoot, and it can shoot a bunch of times. Well, 20 of these cups can, the 20 different people can hurt a lot of people in the head too. It's dumb. And never mind the fact of a rifle being used in self-defense. So that's just a dumb argument. Abortion is a good argument. I mean, you can make a case that I don't like it because I believe it's literally we're made in God's image, and babies have just about as much to live as you do, even if they're born to unfavorable circumstances. Who makes that choice, man? You know what I'm saying? But I mean, you can make good arguments why abortion should be legal. I don't like it. I'd have banned abortion 100%. I'm obviously not going. It's not going to happen in my lifetime, but I would. But you can make good cases why it should be legal, and I can make, I think, valid cases it shouldn't be. You shouldn't hold a baby accountable for the actions of human beings that he had nothing to do with. I mean, a baby wants to live just like you want to live. So why are you going to ruin the life of a baby because of inconvenience? That's I find that actually quite evil. Now you can make a case, well, they're Down syndrome and stuff, and I say, well, I mean, lots of people have Down syndrome children are freaking happy as can be because they look at the joy of a Down syndrome child and they find nothing but wholesome righteousness in there. Yeah, it's painful. Yes, it's costly. Yes. But to say that if they got Down syndrome, the obvious solution would be to boredom. That's look, it's easy for me to say. I get it. All that stuff, all these arguments, I get it. There's nothing as black for me. The Second Amendment is pretty black and white. Abortion, just because I know it's a baby, is pretty black and white. You have good arguments that could be used for those sides against my side. I get it, but you'll never convince me because I don't buy it. legalizing drugs. I've been in favor of legalizing drugs for freaking decades now. My wife disagrees with that immensely on that, and there's good arguments on that too. And I could be convinced, I suppose, that we really need a real war on drugs. I'm not much sure what more you could do, a real war on drugs compared to what we've already done. But I mean, I get it. I'm just trying to think other things. Communism over capitalism. I mean, it's just I don't know. It's interesting. Abortion is evil. I can 100%, James. I could not believe more. Yeah, exactly, Brent. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, how is it that these things happen and only expand the power of the government? I mean, if you're in the government, you want what does the government want? More power. So it's the best thing to expand government. What do you think about people following a certain religion just because? Yeah, look, dude, I'm Catholic Christian. I think I've come to the conclusion more and so that this is why I think when people say it's this book, and this is NIV, by the way, so a lot of people use KJV, and I that's fine. But when they say this is it and the only way, I'm like, how do you? I don't. I just find that I don't buy that. That's the only way, maybe to people who have been told about this, but people have been told other ways have their own other ways, if that makes sense. And I don't know why people find that so offensive. I know the Great Commission. I get it. I know what it says, the Great Commission from Matthew. But if this is this holy book and what it says in here is the only way to God, and the only way you have that holy book is because of your circumstances of your birth, I don't buy that, man. I don't. I think God is bigger than any of that. I think I think what happens is the convenience store of God in Christianity in particular. And I can't speak of Islam. I can't speak of Jewish being Jewish. We have a huge convenience store God mentality. I'm gonna put my dollar in. And I'm gonna get back what I want to validate my religion or I justify what I'm doing in my life. And I don't. I think that's not good. I think God is so much bigger. It's almost like when people say they can see the curve of the earth from a plane, you can't. You just come on. It's like discounting how big the earth is, if that makes sense. The earth is giganosaur, man. It's ginormous. To be up 35,000 feet and think you can see the curve, you can't. The earth is so big. What, 25,000 miles circumference, what, 6,000 miles radius? To think you can see that curving from 40,000 feet. Oh, I kind of think it's the same thing with God. This is look, I'm still Christian. Do not come off this thinking I love Jesus, man. And I have some questions about the Trinity, frankly, but I love Jesus. Now, whether or not Jesus is God, you know what I'm saying, or whether or not Jesus was risen from the dead as he predicted he would, that's for me, the Easter is what matters for me more than anything. Did Jesus die? Yes. Was Jesus alive? Yes. Did he die? Yes. Did he say he'll be risen from the dead? If the answer is yes, then that he had some kind of in with the big guy upstairs. Now, whether he was actually God or he knew because God, basically said, "You are the only you are. I'm happy with you. You are my son," or whatever. Either that's good enough for me, man. I'm cool. I'm on Team Jesus, if that makes sense. Can I validate and prove all that? No, but we got a lot of evidence that not only was Jesus alive, well, inherently we know he's dead if he was alive. We got a lot of evidence that says he rose from the dead as well, and outside of just Josephus, by the way. And so, anyway, the point being is we have lots of evidence that said Jesus rose from the dead. He's over 500 people saw the risen Jesus, and many of those same people who saw the risen Jesus died for the risen Jesus. Those same people who denied him while he was still alive. Peter comes to mind. You know what I'm saying? And that seems pretty. I'm pretty convinced by that. That's cool by me right there. I'm on Team Jesus, and I have no apologies whatsoever. Not so sure if Jesus is actually the Son of God or 1+1+1=1. I don't know about that. It's weird that whenever we say Jesus is God, God is God, but we never really talk about the Holy Ghost that much. It's odd because why is he's kind of thrown to the back, the Holy Spirit? And I don't know. It's of interest. Catholic Church never made the leaders. I don't get it. I don't get. Jesus died for everybody, brother. Jesus died for everybody, man. Uh, yeah, I don't like Bruce Springsteen in the least. I have to see the thing with these guys. I think they actually have to tell you. They have to be. What's the word I'm looking for? They have to say some levels of truth. The evildoers, if that makes sense. I don't know why, but I think there's like some code they have to say. Look, you have to allow people to see what we're doing. Like, because there's no excuse. Like when you see the Pfizer with the freaking Grammy thing, you're like, dude, that's just it's literally satanic. There's no excuse to deny that. There's no excuse. I don't even know what a universal is, man. I don't know what that is. And so, and like C.S. Lewis says, we made a huge mistake when we kind of laugh at Satan as being this weird guy in tights. You know what I'm saying? We're he's a cartoon character in tights. Satan is evil, evil, and the horrible thing about evil, it it chews you up and uses you. That's what I don't understand. Like a lot of people throw in with that, and I'm not even sure they're doing it, but like, oh man, Satan or the bad guys, they'll take care of me. No, they won't. Satan despises more the people who follow him. You got to read. There's a book called Adult Children of Alcoholics. Adult Children of Alcoholics. I read this probably 25 years ago. I was in a pretty big crisis myself, having trying to give up drinking myself, and I just didn't like. I was like, long story short, the issue was the lady who wrote that book says you're going to date people, and you're going to and they're going to love you, and then you're going to make it so you you're going to basically ruin your relationship because you don't love yourself, and as you don't hold yourself in any esteem. So if someone loves you, they must be even worse than you, if that makes sense. Dude, that was some Adult Children of Alcoholics. I'll never forget reading that. I said that's so true. So if someone loves you, they must be real bad, because to love you means they're jacked up because you're jacked up. So if someone does love you, that means they're even worse than you. So you'll inherently do whatever you can to ruin that relationship, because no one good could ever love you. Dude, you read this book, you can't help but cry. It's freaking fascinating. You're like, that's me right there. How many relationships did I ruin because I said, oh man, and you do it because like, oh, all right, well, I got her, but it must be something wrong with her because she likes me. You're not even saying that out. You're not even noticing you're saying that. But I'm gonna go after this chick instead, because if that chick's playing hard to get, that means it's not just like, oh, I hope I can get her, but also because she knows the true me. And once they know the true you, and then they're gonna leave you anyway. So what you do is you say, I'm gonna mess this up before they leave me, if that makes sense. It's a bad place to be, dudes. Anyway, the point being is like it's what Satan goes. If people follow me, they must be scumbags because I'm a scumbag. I truly believe that's what it is. So Satan says, "What are you, freaking idiot? You're following me? I'm Satan. What the hell are you doing? You have all this wonderful God over here. Why would you follow me? But if you're that dumb, I'm gonna tear you up and use you and abuse you because you're stupid. I don't want people being stupid following me. You see what I'm saying? But the people who aren't stupid inherently aren't going to follow him. I think a lot of evil people don't realize that. Satan, Satan, he'll hate you more than he hates Jesus. Anyway, yeah, I'm not so sure about that, Jill. Jill says the mystery of the Trinity is literally part of Jesus's words and teaching. I'm not so sure. To what end did Jesus die for everyone? Well, I think Jesus died to open up the pearly gates, 100%. Jesus died, was crucified on the cross, on a tree, so the pearly gates would be open. So we all hear it. Well done, good and faithful servant. That's truly what I believe. People say, well, how do you explain Abraham? He died before Jesus was born. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I think it's interesting. At what age do you think it's too late to start investing? Marco, Yeah, I don't. Like CDs. For CDs, it's never too late to invest in dividend stocks. It depends what you're trying to do, brother. Marco Polo says at what age you think it's time to start investing. I don't think you can. Oh, here's Jeremy. Anyone here? Here we go. Echo. Sorry, Jeremy. I forgot. I forgot Rumble, man. Forgot, brother. Jeremy says one case for abortion is 11 years. Yeah, 100%. Good point, Jeremy. One case for abortion is 11-year-old girl getting pregnant. If I remember correctly, the girl with that she went through the process. Yeah, I 100%, 100%. Jay Wall says my brother was at the Pentagon. There was definitely a plane in the building. Well, we don't see any video of that at all, and actually it's interesting too because if you look at the first video of I think it was a Fox News guy, he goes, "There's really no evidence a plane even hit." It's very interesting. You should watch some of that stuff, man. You're like, he goes, "Yeah, you would never know a plane hit the building." That's literally the Fox News. I think it was Fox News guy, or maybe it's local, Washington D.C. guy. It's there's no video evidence of it whatsoever. We have a guy on the news saying you would never tell the plane hit this building ever. So I don't know what your brother is. I don't know what his circumstance was, but we have other events that say, we don't have any video evidence of that, and there's people saying there's nothing there. Crazy. Everyone goes to the pearly gates. That's universalism. Yeah. I don't know. I just think God is so big. I don't think God can be confined in this book. I'm sorry. I just don't. I think God is so much bigger than that. I mean, if anyone were to sit there and say, well, you're not a Christian, then I'd say, okay, according to your Christianity, I am a Christian. I live in Jesus. I don't, who are you, whoever that is, to say you're not a Christian? Who the hell are you? You know what I'm saying? Talk about freaking cocky. And I'm not saying anyone's doing that here. But if someone were to say, oh, you're not a Christian because you don't believe what I say you have to believe, I say, screw that, dude. I believe in God, the creator of all things. All things. I believe his son was sent by God to die on the cross for us, to open the pearly gates. And we can say for all who believe in Jesus. Thus, those who don't believe in Jesus don't go to the pearly gates. Abraham? I mean, we just literally, Abraham because of this, that, and the other. Okay. So we have a cop out. We have an opt out for Abraham. All right. So I mean, come on. Solomon, David, I mean, the king, the list goes on and on and on, man. Well, okay. So if those guys get into pearly gates, but because whatever opt out we are, then the people who are born in friggin' Jakarta don't. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Let's just put it that way. And I mean, why would that be so bothersome to some people when other people believe differently? I just don't think God is. It's the it's convenience store God. I'm gonna get God to do what I need, and after that, I'll put him right back into the convenience store. I don't want to do that this time. No, see, this is Jill. That makes no. If Jesus was not God, he wouldn't be. What are you talking about, Jill? Jill, why would you even think that? Why would, if Jesus was not God, he would not be able to rise from the dead? As if God could not make it happen, saying, I'm going to make that guy rise from the dead? Huh? Not then freaking, who else rose from the dead? Lazarus, but there's another guy who wasn't by Jesus. Did Paul supposedly raise some from the, I can't remember. Jill, what are you talking about? If God can make anyone he wants, I literally don't get that line of thinking. I don't want to argue. It's weird to me, and that's okay. It's okay to be weird to me. It has been proven the gospel has spread around the entire world many times over. Okay, it's been proven. So a new baby born in Jakarta? Come on, man. Huh? God made a covenant with Abraham. All right, but the issue, Donna, is we say only through Jesus do you go to heaven. And well, Abraham died before Jesus, so well, but we have to have an opt-out. Look, I do not want to argue this stuff because I don't know. I just it's something that's in my head. I think about. I'm sitting there thinking. Jill says only God, Jesus, could bring him back to life. I said I don't buy that for 2 seconds. I literally don't. God can do whatever he wants to do. The big guy upstairs, he's got it all. He's got it all going on. If God says, Jesus, you're my son, I love you, and I want you to come back from the dead in order to show over 530 people you're risen, you know what I'm saying? And to change the world, that seems like God could do that to me without question. Without question. No. All right, see, your Old Testament saints were saved. Abraham believed in God; it was accounted to him as righteousness. So why? Okay, we're gonna. Um, right here. Yeah, I don't think because the point about this is religion. Religion isn't necessary for God, if that makes sense. You see what I'm saying? Religion. That's my issue here. People get so caught up in religion. And I don't want to get so caught up in religion that I take my eyes off the prize, which is the creator of all living things. And I truly think we spend a lot of time discussing fighting wars over religion without looking at the, the supreme being of all things. I'm telling you, I just, man, God is so, let's say prayers. Oh, Heavenly Father, we will never know the mysteries of the world you created for us. We'll never know. You may or may not tell us in due time. We don't know. We don't know. It may or may not be in the books that you've shared with us. It may or may not be. But let us be open minded to recognize you are above everything, everything. And to seek wisdom and knowledge, to turn to you first and foremost, because you are above everything. God, look, I don't need to know the truth. I just need to know you. That's all I need to know. I need to know God. And I just ask for guidance to know you better. And I just feel like, Lord, I'm on that way. I feel like I'm knowing you more every single day. And I am so humbled that this flawed human being of a man, of a creature that has no righteousness in your realm, that you allow into your realm. It's amazing to me. Why would you allow this flawed, disgusting human being to even utter your name? It's breathtaking. Oh, and it's so fantastic. And good Lord, I just pray for peace on earth, and we pray in Jesus' name, amen. Oh man. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Let's see some final up comments here. Let's see. Jeremy's got anything left on Rumble? If God can create anything, God can raise people from the dead. Religion. Jeremy, for a guy from Maine, you ain't so bad, man. A personal relationship with God is, and Jeremy says with Jesus, is what matters. 100%. If God can create everything, He can raise people from the dead. Religion is a man thing. I 100% could not agree more. 100% could not agree more. Look, I read this every single morning. I'm not anti this. I believe in it. I find some areas in here that make me doubt. Oh, must be a bad guy. Yeah, we talked a lot about that, Rob Glow, about Jaron and his take on different than mine, and that's okay. We don't have to punch each other. It's the cocksureness of everybody. Yeah, let's just give an example. This guy was debating me on King James, and I was like, well, because King James is the only way, blah blah blah. And so I said all the other books are wrong because King James is a true literal word of God. King James, they use the word Bible or bottles, and in all the other versions they use the word wineskins. So, I mean, I know this is English version, but still, I mean, if the King James is a literal way, and they say bottles in the NIV and all NASB, they all say wineskins. Well, one of these is wrong because wineskins and bottles are two completely different words. They have the same functionality, I grant you, but inherently, then, if King James is the only way and it has a different word, then you can't say the other ones are the only way. The other ones are not the way. You see how this becomes narrower and narrower, and I just find that weird to me. And then we know King James, I did the video earlier today. It was the Tyndale. They took the words from Tyndale and they obliterated some of the words from Tyndale. Flat Earth. It says it explicitly in the Tyndale Bible. Flat Earth. King James, which translated the Tyndale Bible, did not say flat Earth. It didn't. I mean, that doesn't mean the Earth's flat or anything. I'm just saying what I'm trying to say is the King James version, they don't use the word flat Earth in there. They don't, and yet the Tyndale Bible did. And Tyndale literally was a hero among heroes, certainly more so than King James, for heaven's sake. I mean, I'm just like the Tyndale freaking crushed. So how do we then square this circle? Say King James is the only Bible, all the other ones are okay, but they're not the true Word of God, the inspired Word of God, because King James was based on the Tyndale, but yet King James they used different words than Tyndale did. You can't square that circle to me. And then we can say, well, the NIV says this, and you can say, well, the Catholic Bible says different. Well, the Catholic Bible, I just see where this is the religion which is confusion, and who creates confusion? It's not God. I think it's Satan, where they say religion as opposed to your love of God, your love of religion. And C.S. Lewis talks a lot about this, man. I 100% agree. Says C.S. Lewis will get into this well better than I can. But it's just like if we're only focusing on religion as opposed to God, I find that to be a challenge and problematic. And then especially when you look at the various the block script, block Hebrew versus Phoenician script, it's just there's a lot to be desired of. We don't even know who wrote the first five in the Old Testament. We don't. We attribute to Moses. We don't know that to be sure. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? And then you look at the Egyptian version of what happened with a Maneteo, and talking about these shepherds. They came down and they tore into Egypt and they ran the Egyptians off, and then the Egyptians mounted a comeback 500 years later. And there's a guy, I forgot his name. I did a video on this, and he was known as, I forgot his name, but he led the shepherds in the Exodus, crazy, to Jerusalem, and it turns out that would be Moses. I mean, so everyone has a different perspective. Like Jaron was saying about the perspective of the Russians with a space race, the Americans with a space race. Your perspective is on what side of the street you're on. There's just no two ways around this, man. And when you look at the Egyptian side and you're reading this guy Maneteo, and you're like, huh. And he talks about the Exodus and all this. You're like, oh, that's biblical. We all have we know the Great Flood happened. All religions have that. You see what I'm saying? It seems to me that to put God in a specific religion again is to minimize how God is so big and powerful and just. And Jeremy, you're batting 100 here, Jeremy. People have this Manetheo or something like that, man. Jeremy, you're crushing tonight, dude. People have this weird desire to control, rule over people, causing all kinds of problems. Satan is like a roaring lion. By the way, speaking of roaring lions, man, I was reading this in my reading today too, and talk about dude. This is, I tell you, man. So go back to Isaiah. He says, where he put a lookout, not right there. Hold on a second. All right, so this is Isaiah 21, 21:6. This is what the Lord says to me: Go post a lookout and have him report what he sees. When he sees chariots with teams of horses, riders on donkeys, or riders on camels, let him be alert, fully alert. And then the lookout shouted, and he talks about this. But if you actually look, it's not the lookout shouted. That's what the NIV says. But other versions say the lookout. It wasn't a lookout. It was a another, but shouted like roared like a lion. Uh, I mean, it's just you see the lookout shouted. Okay, yay! You know the. I mean, Paul Revere shouted. I mean, the I don't know if that's an adjective, but it's like a lion. The lookout roared like a lion. Does that change? And there's so many different just contexts that can be changed. And I was reading this a lot yesterday. I was like, man, like a lion roared. I was like, whoa, that's a lot more than just the lookout shouted. I don't know, man. I just and I can't remember where that was from, but that was in the original. I forgot what it was, but I was just like, man, why discount that? I mean, that's such a deeply, for me, just awesome phrase. A lookout. It wasn't a lookout. It was a. You know what I'm talking about. There you go. Hey, thanks, Brent. Appreciate it. I mean, show me where Jesus. I mean, Jill, where does Jesus say the Trinity? I mean, show me, because there's lots of I mean, there's lots of other things where I'm. Look, I'm not saying it's not true. Don't put words in my mouth here. But when you hear a different perspective, like, oh, that's interesting, huh? Um, you have to. There's no other way around that. You have to learn the original languages, and I can't, and I won't. I'm too old to do that, probably. But again, Block Hebrew wasn't really common until 700 AD. And so anything that's written in Block Hebrew, it's not. It's not from the olden days. You see what I'm saying? And so we don't know we don't know who Moses was. Frankly, we don't know if he actually wrote the first five. What do they use? Aramaic? Do they use Phoenician? Script Hebrew? All these different things. And if we're going to come up with stuff that we can kind of quickly discount in terms of the language and they used, you're like, a lot of people would go to their grave thinking that's biblical. You're like, well, and that's kind of like going back to Dead Sea Scrolls, the Moabite temple that some Lutheran German priest happened to find in the Bedouin tribe in the late 1800s, just out of nowhere. This Lutheran priest is walking through North Africa, where the Bedouins were, and he just happens this gorgeous black writing talks about Moab. No one else saw this, and we don't see it today because the Bedouin tribe was really mad that white people came, and what they did is they turned it to rubble and dust. And so we just got to go off of this Lutheran German priest. It's like at some point you got to say, why do we have to make crap up to validate stuff? I don't like that. Dead Sea Scrolls have a lot to be desired. The Moab Temple has a lot to be desired. Why do we got to make stuff up? It's just, I would like to see proof of the Moab. It's a freaking temple. It's not a temple, rock. There isn't any because it's been destroyed. Come on, man. I don't like that stuff. And yet people are going to say, well, it's, scriptural because we have proof of this. And I'm like, well, do you really have proof, or just all these people traveling back and forth to North Africa? Not one saw this black temple. Not even a temple. It's like a rock, a stone, I guess. In the middle of nowhere, a middle of a high traffic area, until his Lutheran, and he couldn't even read the script. And look, man. I mean, you don't have to be Bart Ehrman to say, yeah, that's odd to me, but you have to start saying, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And then we have other things that are more obviously evidence of things, and that gets discounted because Barnabas. I don't know. It's weird. That's okay. So if you read Genesis, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, yeah, that okay. But remember, we're saying the Son in the Trinity is equal with God. You see what I'm saying? That's the thing. We're saying the Son is equal with God. And it's an interesting thing if you actually look at if you actually look to see if that's proven, because what happened is if you actually look back and you start seeing the I was just reading this 2 days ago. I'm drawing a blank. I'm getting tired. If you actually start, it was my man William, my Josephus book, William Wist. Let's look him up. That's tough. I'm gonna get out of here. Maybe we'll do another video on this tomorrow. I love this stuff, man, and I'm not angry at any of you guys. If any of you guys are angry at me, please don't be. I ask for forgiveness if I offended you in any way. Don't be angry at me. For me, it's a journey. And not to be open-minded to in your journey. And I don't want to hear people say, well, don't be so open-minded, your brains fall out. That literally doesn't make any sense. Your mind doesn't hold your brains. Your mind doesn't hold your brains. It's your skull that holds your brains. So be open-minded and says, yeah, I'm willing to listen to new information as it comes. Maybe tomorrow I'll do a video. Maybe we'll do a live stream on William Wilston. That guy crushed, dude. Love that guy. He's the guy who translated Josephus. And for all of you guys who are familiar with Josephus, Don, I get it. I get what you're saying. 100%. I'm not anti-Trinity. I'm just saying there's a challenge to this that's interesting to me. I get like water, but there's a fourth thing of water too, by the way. Anyway, again, you baptize in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That doesn't say that Jesus is the Lord with 1 equals 1. It doesn't say that. It just says at the end of the day, just because you say that I'm Catholic, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, in of itself, that does not prove the Trinity. And if you actually look back at the beginning of the foundation where they kicked out the anti-Trinitarians, and I can't remember, it's the Nicenes, I can't remember. You're like, oh, that's weird. That's weird. Like the 300 AD. You have to, you don't have to. You don't have to do whatever you want. But you start seeing like this is man who's involved here. Men. And you're like, why did they kick out William Wilson? I'm sure is his name. Whiston. I can't remember. But the guy who translated Josephus, was not a Trinitarian, just FYI. And he was banished from polite society because he was not a Trinitarian. Now, this is in the 1500s or so. And he was part of the banned Christianity called I almost said Anabaptist. It's not Anabaptist. It's I'm drawing a blank what it was. But William Wilston, who translated Josephus, who many Christians will use to validate Jesus being risen from the dead. I wish you would not, actually. Don't use Josephus as your validation for Jesus being risen from the dead. Because people can debunk that in 2 seconds flat. I'm just trying to protect you from making these mistakes I've made myself, actually. And then you're like, oof. Anyways, the point being is if you look at Wilston, and you just read back from what he thought and how that the previous mechanisms, how this came to believe, you're like, they just banned these guys. Literally, they said, if you don't believe in the Trinity, you're gone. It's like, it's interesting. Yep, this job, me too, man. Me too. All right, I'm I get out of here because I'm going to get frustrated. Just because the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost in of itself does not prove a Trinity, that Jesus is God. Now, look, this is the point. This is the problem, man. People want to throw this at you like you have to take this side. And I'm not. I'm saying there is a challenge to this, and it's interesting. And not to recognize that there is some, especially if you've taken the time as I have to actually research how this came to be, not to recognize there's a valid argument against the Trinity doesn't mean I support that argument. It just says at the end of the day, there is a valued argument against it. And many Christians had it, and many Christians still do. But just because those Christians are the minority doesn't mean they're wrong. Yeah, right on, Don. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to bed myself. All right, we'll get out of here. We'll do it another time. All right. God bless. It's all good. God is good always. If loving the Lord is wrong, I don't want to be right. We'll see you guys.